Welcome, everyone, to the monthly meeting of the Knoxville, Knox County Planning Commission. I'm Tim Hill, Chair of the Planning Commission, and I'll be conducting today's meeting. Assisting me today is the Executive Director of Knoxville, Knox County Planning, Amy Brooks, and the Planning Commission Attorney, Tasha Blakeney. I would like to call this meeting to order. I'll now ask Mr. DeArmond to call the roll.
Commissioner Huber?
Here.
Commissioner Browning?
Here.
Commissioner Levinson?
Here.
Commissioner Boyer has informed us she will not be here today. Commissioner Barger?
Here.
Commissioner Overton? Commissioner Perez? Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Higgins?
Here.
Commissioner Biggs? Here. Commissioner Daly? Commissioner Gill? Here. Commissioner Midas? Here. Commissioner Adams? Here. Commissioner Hill?
Here.
That's 13 present, sir.
Thank you, Mr. DeArmond. Participating today are planning commissioners as well as planning staff and various representatives of city and county agencies. The planning commissioners are citizens from the city and county who have been appointed by either the city mayor or county mayor. We receive no salary and volunteer our time as a service to our community. Now a word about how discussion will take place. After each item is called, I'll read the staff's recommendation. On certain items, I'll call on staff to comment. At this time, the applicant may address the commission or defer his or her opening remarks and allow any opposition to speak first. The applicant and those in support of the applicant will be given a total of 5 minutes to speak. I'll then ask for other comments from the floor. The opposition will also be given a total of 5 minutes to speak. If either side wishes to have an opportunity for rebuttal, you'll need to reserve your time from your allotted 5 minutes. Applicants and citizens who registered to participate and are attending the meeting in person will be asked to come to the podium and share their name and address for the record where their item is heard. Those who have registered to speak online do not need to sign in at the podium. If you'd like to speak on an agenda item and have not registered to do so in advance, please raise your hand when the item is read into the record. I'll then indicate when it's time for you to speak, and you can approach the podium at that time. You'll be asked to sign in at the podium as well as state your name and address for the record. If the Planning Commission decision on that item is appealed and we need to notify you, we cannot do so without your name and address. The Planning Commission may grant additional time for presentation of information. Speakers should limit their remarks to the facts of the case and should avoid repeating comments that have been previously presented to the Planning Commission. Because of the number of items we have before us, groups in favor or opposed to an item have been asked to appoint a spokesperson to represent them. If you have any items that you'd like to make part of the record, please submit those documents to knoxplanning.org/share or provide to one of staff members. Please identify the file number and meeting date in your submittal. I hope you all have reviewed the agenda package from Planning's website. In addition to the agenda, there's information on the website related to how today's meeting will be conducted, as well as correspondence on individual cases. Many of the items we vote on require further action by the City Council or County Commission. For matters that are forwarded to City Council for final action, the applicant or their representative should be present at the meeting at which the request will be considered. For matters forwarded to County Commission for final action, particularly rezoning requests, the applicant or their representative must, and I repeat, must be present at the meeting at which the request will be considered, or the case will, at minimum, be postponed. Applicants will be notified of the meeting date. If you have any questions regarding the meeting date or process, contact planning staff. Today's meeting will be conducted in order of the agenda. Please stand as you are able as Vice Chair Huber leads us in the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Our Father, bless this community. Help us to ensure the decisions made this afternoon are fair, legal, and in the best interest of the total community. As always, keep us mindful of the needs of others, especially those who are in sorrow, need, sickness, or any other adversity. Amen. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda are the postponement and withdrawal lists. I'll read these lists separately. Under automatic postponements, number 25, Tipton Station subdivision. Number 28, Don Epperly, JDK Properties. Number 29, final plat for re-subdivision of lots 8 and 26 of the J.A. Umbarger property. Number 36, A and B, Heo Design and Development. 46, City of Knoxville. Under 30-day postponements, do we have any recusals? Item 12, Homestead Land Holdings, LLC. Item 20, Masana Investments, LLC. Number 31, Homestead Land Holdings, LLC. Number 38, Monterey Oak Subdivision. Number 39, Pleasant Village Subdivision. Number 42, Car Connection Complete Auto Repair. Number 43, Cavalry Chapel of Knoxville. Are there any other requests to postpone an item? If not, Chair will entertain a motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Levinson, seconded by Vice Chair Huber, related to the 30-day postponements. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Under 60-day postponements, any recusals? I'm sorry? Oh, there are none. We have no 90-day postponements. Under withdrawals, we have item 1, Wilkinson subdivision. Chair will entertain a motion. We have a motion.
What number was that?
Number 1, withdrawals from the table, excuse me. These are withdrawals from the table. We still have a motion from Commissioner Barger, seconded by Commissioner Levinson, correct? Okay. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Under tablings, we have item 30, Andrew Thomas. Chair will entertain a motion. All right. We have a motion from Commissioner Barger, seconded by Commissioner Levinson. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Items to be removed from the table. Item number 2, R. Bentley Marlowe revised. Chair will entertain a motion. We have a motion from Commissioner Barger, seconded by Commissioner Levinson. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the consent list, which is composed of items marked with a C. These items are considered non-controversial and are voted on all at once in order to save time. Items are listed in the order they appear on the agenda. Please listen carefully. Once an item is approved as part of the consent list, there will be no further action or discussion on it. I often remind people, we've seen people sit here through the whole meeting and not realize that, so listen carefully. Do we have any recusals?
Yes, I have to recuse myself.
We have Commissioner Overton with a recusal. I think I'm going to disclose on one of these consent items related to Cherokee Country Club, as well as I think Commissioner Browning, would you like to speak?
Yes, I'll disclose as well.
Okay.
Motion.
All right. We're members of Cherokee. We see no financial gain. We are disclosing that, but we'll be voting on it, so, all right. Here we go. Item 2, approval of October 3rd, 2024 agenda. Item 3, approval of September 12th, 2024 minutes. Item 5, final plat of Bellhaven subdivision, formerly known as Beaver Valley subdivision. Item 6, Jim Snowden, Knox County Engineering and Public Works. Item 7, Jim Snowden, Knox County Engineering and Public Works. Item 8, Jim Snowden, Knox County Engineering and Public Works. Item 10, Benjamin C. Mullins. Item 14, Jeff Young. Item 15, Oleg Zayats. Item 17, Bhavan Kumar Patel. Item 19, Masana Investments LLC. Item 23, Ryan S. Lynch. Item 27, Ryan Lynch. Item 32, Cherokee Country Club. Item 33, Knoxville Habitat for Humanity. Item 37, Jim Odell. Are there any requests to remove an item from the consent list? Any requests? Chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent items as read. We have a motion by Commissioner Barger. Excuse us one moment.
Ms. Hillman, did you?
I just saw someone raise their hand, but maybe gentleman in the blue in the back, were you?
He doesn't know what's going on.
I'm sorry, what was that?
You-
You want to come to the podium and speak? Okay, what was your number? Did you get that?
I'm sorry, sir, you'll have to come to the podium. We can't hear you.
It was 10024 RZ.
You good? Okay. All right. Let's see, where were we? We had a motion and a second, is that right?
I'm sorry, I just want to clarify, because I think he said 10D RZ, and that is one of the ones on consent. So just to clarify,
We're not sure what he said. It sounds like he might have said 10-0. Yeah, he's good.
okay, perfect, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. You have that, Mr. DeArmond? Okay, we got a motion and a second. We're ready to vote on it. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Sure.
I just wanted to clarify on item number 36 for the withdrawal, 2 of the 3 sections
Yes,
of that,
C
not the
remains.
entire
Yeah.
item.
Is that right, Mr. DeArmond? C,
I think A and B.
A and B
And
were,
C remains. Yeah.
C remains, yes. Next on the agenda. Agenda item 9.
We're still trying to make sure that you actually had a motion.
Okay, we had, on the consent list, Commissioner Barger gave us a motion and a second by Commissioner Levinson.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, number 9.
All right, on to agenda item 9. Applicant Jim Snowden, Knox County, change requested from Ball Camp Pike to Hitching Post Drive. So this is a street road name change between west corner of parcel 104046 and Andes Road. Applicant's reason for change is renamed as a result of Shod Road realignment. Staff recommendation, approve the name change from Ball Camp Pike to Hitching Post Drive as requested by Knox County Engineering and Public Works. And I think we have someone, Mr. Galt, here to speak. Yes. You'll have up to 5 minutes, Mr. Galt, and if you'll state your name and address, please.
Oh, sorry. Tommy Galt, 8642 Ball Camp Pike. We had some concerns. We became aware of this particular name change proposal sort of by accident. There were no signs posted on our section of the street until after my neighbor across the road, Mr. Osborne, called about it. He was informed there were signs, and he assured them there were none, so there were no signs on that section of the road at all until after he called, and they came out that afternoon and put them up. There may have been some on other sections, but spoken to over 70% of my neighbors on that particular section of the road, and I can assure you, in speaking to them personally, none of them are in favor of this. We don't see any need for it. One of the reasons Mr. Snowden told me that he was given was that it was to avoid confusion with EMS and police finding address. But I have lived at that address my entire life. I'll be 69 years old next month. And I can assure you from personal experience, there's never been any problem with EMS or the sheriff's department finding any house. We've had to call them several times. We've raised 5 children there, so it's been numerous times that we've had to call emergency medical services, and they've never had a problem responding within minutes. As a matter of fact, I spoke to a young lady during my canvassing of the neighborhood, and she had worked for EMS for several years. She said there's not a problem with it. And nowadays with these things, navigation applications on automobiles, you can find any address anywhere in the country, for that matter, within seconds. We're opposed to the name change, don't see any need for the name change. One of the reasons given was it's because it's a segmented street. Well, Ball Camp Pike has been a segmented road since before I was born. It was the main thoroughfare from the west end of Knox County all the way into the city. And when Highway 62 was constructed, that segmented several portions of it. So yes, it is a segmented road. But there are other segmented roads in the county, Beaver Creek Drive, Beaver Ridge Road. You have Byington Beaver Ridge, Byington Solway, Byington Ball Camp Pike. And my question is, are you, does the commission plan on changing the names of all those roads in the county? I don't see that that's feasible. Our only conclusion, I'm not making any accusations on anyone, but the only reason that makes any sense to me that they would want to change the name of the road is that someone somewhere stands to benefit in some way, probably financially, from changing the road name. In my and my neighbors' opinions, we don't see any logical reason for changing it. It'll cause unnecessary hardship. Many of these people are elderly, some handicapped to some extent or another. They can't attend today because of that reason, or they're younger and employed. I happen to be retired, so I was able to come today and do this. But again, I assure you that no one that I've spoken to personally is in favor of this, and we don't see any need for it. I don't know what else to say other than, the fact that we weren't notified. That concerned us. It seemed like it was trying to be eased in on us without anybody finding out about it. Mr. Osborne ran across it kind of by accident. He gets on the Knox County website quite often, and even he missed it, but his wife ran across the item on the agenda and pointed it out to him, and then he shared it with me. So in the short time that we had available, I, again, canvassed as many of the neighbors as I could and to find out how they felt about it. No one that I spoke to wants to do this, and I ask you respectfully to just leave it alone. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Galt. All right. Mr. Snowden, would you like to address any of those matters or speak of the road project?
Yeah, and I think, talk a little bit about, I guess, why we got here, how we got here. Mr. Galt is pretty much there on location at what is now Ball Camp Pike that is being proposed to be renamed. The reason that renaming is when we were developing the plans for the project many years ago, the intent was to eliminate at-grade rail crossings. It's a busy road. We want to get, we want to provide for bridge access over the railroad. The existing crossing there that's at Andes at Byington Sawway, we looked at a bridge at that alignment, and at that alignment, we would then pass by Mr. Galt's house, and he would retain that address. However, in doing that, there would be probably about 20 people that would have to be relocated. There's a lot of houses that are clustered right up against the road there. So we chose an alternative alignment, and right about Mr. Galt's property, we start shifting the road over to the south into what we vacant pasture. And by doing that, we were able to just relocate 2 people. So there was a big financial benefit to the county for the roadway to be constructed the way it is. So I just want to at least give some context as to how we got to where we were. And then as we developed the road project, we obviously got with MPC addressing and brought this issue up. I've spoke to the EMA folks as well as the Karnes Volunteer Fire Department, and it is their preference to not have these segmented roadways. So, I don't know, the addressing folks may want to speak a little bit more because I think they were engaged a little bit too, but I think there was, from my limited conversation, there were some concerns about some of the renaming as left alone with Ball Camp Pike being the way it is, unfortunately.
Thank you, Director Snowden. Ms. Keffer, would you like to add anything?
Sure. To the point of existing disconnected streets throughout the county, we realize they exist and we try to correct them as new projects and new realignments come up. So it's not necessarily feasible to correct all these issues throughout the county right now, but as we can, we're trying to avoid any disconnection of street names.
Okay. Commission? Commissioner Midas.
Is the county responsible for notifying these residents? Is there a reason why they weren't notified prior to now?
Ms. Keffer, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. This was a slightly unusual case. Frequently, if there's a road closure or another project, we may reach out to the community in advance for input on the street names. In this unique situation where the roads are a natural extension of existing roads, we chose to follow those names. So the notification was provided in the form of the public notice as is standard with planning practices for planning commission items.
Public notice meaning a sign, or how?
The signage was posted as well as the notice in the newspaper as required by law.
I guess I just, I feel bad. This is gonna be a hardship for many residents. Would have been nice for the county to have been able to reach out and maybe have a conversation with the neighborhood along the street, especially since so many people obviously did not know this was happening and are not approving of it. Is there any way that, Mr. Snowden, would you be interested in postponing this for 30 days just to get the notice out and reach out to the community?
Yeah, I don't have, I would want to be interested in see what Ms. Kupfer says. Probably within 30 days, we'll have a portion of the new road open. And I don't know how that might impact, because the phasing of the construction there, the new road is open to a certain point, but within the next 30 days, we may open that bridge that's currently blocking traffic primarily east and west. But unless there's concerns from addressing, I don't care to postpone. I mean, certainly we want to make everyone aware about it, be as transparent as we can.
I guess
Mr.
my concern would be if street signs are posted with new names, that may cause confusion for, just general people driving on those sections of roads, because the names themselves would be disconnected. And I will say, Shad Road itself, or Ball Camp Pike, west of this location, had a street name change approved back in 2006 when this project originally initiated. So that section of road will be renamed to Shad already west of this project, this area over to Middlebrook Pike. So postponing just adds, I guess, to that confusion with the disconnected roads. So it's a matter of timing of when we would send reassignment letters to property owners.
Commissioner Midas, I can't hear you.
After the approval is when you send the letters?
The name change still needs to be approved by county commission. So until that happens, we wouldn't send the letters because it's not official until that time.
Well, I guess I would, I'd like to pass a motion just to postpone it for 30 days for the community to understand what's happening. I guess I would like to, if there's no, it seems like reasonable, and I felt like within the city that they actually send out notices of name changes prior to this. I remember being on the Public Property Naming Commission, and they actually reached out to the community, helped them with assistance in changing names when this happened. This is a big deal for many people who live on those streets, so.
I appreciate that. We
Yeah.
unfortunately have to change addresses frequently when property is subdivided. This isn't anything new to us. As far as Public Property Naming Committee, street name changes no longer require input from that board, so that skips that process. Sorry. They go through, for honorary street names still go through PPNC, but not a public right-of-way.
Do you guys provide any kind of assistance when name changes happen to these county roads for, people who are elderly and are not sure how to?
Right,
what
how to
process
do this.
go
We do
through?
have a brochure that we provide with the reassignment letter and the new address, giving them some phone numbers to contact, driver's license, social security, property assessor, some more of the basic things. We don't know everybody's financial, accounts, so we can't help them in that matter. The post office does forward mail for 1 year, so they have up to a year to complete an address change. So any mail sent to the old address will be forwarded for 1 year if residents complete an address change with the post office. So they have time to enact any changes.
Okay, well, let me ask, Mr. Galt, what, would you like to have the county meet with you and the other residents on the street? It sounds like, from what I'm understanding, it sounds like a reasonable request to go ahead and change the name. But given that, would it help you to have 30 days before this approval goes through in order for you to communicate to your neighbors and get the word out about what needs to happen prior to this change?
Yes, I think so. Another question I had, Ball Camp Pike's so segmented, and if you're doing this now to just my section, are you gonna change the name of all the other sections of Ball Camp Pike? Because it runs all the way into town to 640. And there's a number of businesses on there. I know, quite a few private citizens, so I just personally, and my neighbor, we don't see any need for it. I worked at the post office. I'm retired from the post office. We deliver segmented streets all the time. Even like Highway 62, there'll be one route that delivers a segment of that, and then another route delivers another segment. It causes no problems for the post office or sheriff or emergency services or anyone. And as I said, many of of these people that I spoke with personally are elderly, somewhat disabled. It's going to be a lot of trouble, even for me. I don't want to change my address. I get correspondence from a number of different people, doctors, publications, periodicals, things like that. I don't want to have to go through that hassle. And I know these older people don't, well, I'm old myself, but I know these elderly people don't want to have to do that. So, yeah, at least a 30-day extension, if nothing else. But again, we don't want it changed at all. But yeah, a 30-day extension would help.
Director Snowden, would you like to weigh in on that?
I would, and I've known Mr. Galt here for 20 years, bought his portion of his property for the roadway, and great guy, and if I was in his shoes, I would probably be standing here saying the same. However, the one thing I would say is, it sounds like, I mean, Mr. Galt wants the Ball Camp Pike name to stay. And it sounds like from addressing and I guess the emergency folks, you know, I mean, maybe we could accept a potential, you know, another suggested name, but I don't know in 30 days I don't know. I think that the Ball Camp Pike, I don't know if we would be allowed to keep that personally. I mean, I think that's the ultimate question. And, you know, I think there is some concern from the Emergency Fire Bureau. I don't know if Mr. Galt has another suggested name, or if you just would really want to keep the Ball Camp Pike address.
We want to keep the Ball Camp Pike address. And as I said, I spoke personally with someone that worked at EMS, and they said it's never been a problem.
Yeah, so
and again, point out, you know.
I think that's the challenge in 30 days. I think we're going to be right back to this body with the same argument. Unfortunately, I'm not sure the best way to resolve that, because the MA folks did express a concern about it. But I see your point, Mr. Galt. I totally do, sir.
So, you know, if you're changing this section, are you going to change all the other sections as well? Because it's segmented all the way into town. We just don't want it to change, don't see any need for it. So, again, thank you for your time.
Are the conditions different with this case as what he refers to as those other pieces of Ball Camp Pike?
They're not. It's essentially, like he was referencing, the State Route 62, I think, historically, when the state or the county built the road, they didn't change those names, and I think now we saw some of the challenges or unintended consequences of not changing them, and it's just better practice to do it today but yes, there's numerous sections of Ball Camp Pike out through there, no question. But then we get the complaint about it from the Fire Bureau, you know, the Fire, Carnes Volunteer Fire Department and other people. So this is a tough one. I can see it both ways.
Why don't we change those?
I think that's up to either the city, the county, or 911 to determine that it's important to do that. I know numerous years ago, the director of 911 at that time submitted many name change applications to remove duplications throughout the city. I mean, numerous to try and prevent these issues. So it's feasible to do so. It's time-consuming on staff in terms of finding appropriate street names. In this case, using hitching post was a logical extension of the existing hitching post drive that's there now, but to just determine names, you know, from scratch is very difficult. I'm happy to do so because I think it's a concern across the county.
Yeah, I think it seemed like part of Mr. Galt's concern question was, well, we see it all over everywhere else, but why are you treating us maybe in a unique way here? So, Commissioner Higgins.
We're actually trying to work on another section of road that's being closed and will be disconnected. So that's going to be forthcoming, not for Ball Camp Pike, but for another street within the county. This is not unusual, and I apologize that you didn't feel you had sufficient notice, and I understand the difficulty it will be to change all your correspondence, because as I said, we deal with address reassignments frequently, and I hear these same concerns from residents each time.
I have not forgotten that we have a motion on the floor, but Director Snowden, would you like
And
to speak?
I'm sorry to keep going on this, but I want to try to help Mr. Galt if at all possible. I don't care, I mean, I don't know if Andrea has reached out. I can talk a little more specifically to if you do want to move forward with the 30-day motion, and see if Mr. Anders, the E911 director, and the Karnes Volunteer Fire Department, if they don't have a concern with this, I'm okay with leaving it as that. I just thought that some of the verbal conversations I've had with them have been, they did express a concern, but if they will, put something in writing or a little more specific about their concerns, maybe we can revisit it, and then we may be back in the same spot. But if they don't, I mean, if Andrea's okay, I'm okay with leaving the name personally, but I understand some of the concern as well.
All right, okay. Good enough. Okay, so let's get back to where we started. Before I recognize you, Commissioner Higgins, we do have a motion on the floor for a 30-day postponement.
I'm going to second that motion based upon what Mr. Snowden said, that it sounds like there is a little bit more dialogue that could happen, that could potentially either provide greater information for the community or change the decision. So for that reason, I'm going to second the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Midas, seconded by Commissioner Adams, and now let's go on with further discussion with Commissioner Higgins.
All right, thank you. Just a couple of thoughts or questions. First of all, I appreciate Mr. Snowden's idea to look into this, and I think that's definitely the best path forward starting point. If that does not work out, I would wonder if maybe a very similar name like Ball Camp West or something could work, something that's like a minor change. But then lastly, I think worst case scenario, I remember maybe a year or so ago, we had a case that was a name-changing case that I think had been part of a community vote, and there was actually a lot of engagement, and they finally landed on one that seemed to at least win the vote. And so I would think that in this scenario, because it will be kind of a drastic difference if they can't keep Ball Camp Pike, I don't know if there would be time to do it, but maybe trying to do like a meeting with the neighbors that put a few options up to a vote, something like that just allows for more engagement, especially if everyone's got to go and change their addresses. So I definitely like the path that we have forward, but if that doesn't work, I think that there could be a couple other options that maybe you're less invasive and allow for more community engagement.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Galt.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to postpone for 30 days. Seeing no other lights. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving to agenda item 11, applicant Benjamin C. Mullins, location north and south sides of Karnes Valley Drive, north of Oak Ridge Highway, west of Wave Tree Drive. 20.54 acres. Present zoning is agricultural and floodway. Zoning requested, planned residential and floodway. Existing land use, agriculture, forestry, vacant land. Density proposed up to 6 dwelling units per acre. Staff recommendation, approve the planned residential zone up to 6 dwelling units per acre because it is compatible with surrounding development and zoning, and it is supported by recreational amenities, subject to one condition, the floodway zone be retained. And I see our applicant is present.
Ben Mullins, 550 West Main Street, here for the applicant.
Do we have opposition? No opposition. You may proceed, Counselor.
Thank you. I was hoping there wasn't going to be any opposition. There were some comments online up through September 16. On September 17, we had a community meeting out there with them and heard a lot of their concerns. And we are working on addressing those concerns with them. One of the quirks to this, and something that will speak to us addressing the neighborhood out there. The acreage by KGIS is 21.29, and we asked for the 6 units an acre, thinking that would yield approximately 127 units. However, there was some right-of-way that was backed out of that, and then the floodway after you back that out, and that would only yield 104 units, and we're still fine with moving forward with the 104 units on that, and I think that also has made the neighborhood a little more comfortable with what we're doing. So with that, I would ask that you approve this per staff's recommendation.
Thank you. Commission.
I make a motion that we approve as per staff recommendation. One condition, floodway would be retained.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Levinson and then seconded by Commissioner Browning. Seeing no other lights, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is agenda item 13, the applicant Jacob Berezanski. Location, north side of Greenwell Road, east of Childress Road, 1.1 acres. Present zoning, agricultural. Zoning requested, planned residential. Existing land use, single-family residential. Density proposed up to 2 dwelling units per acre. Staff recommendation is to deny the planned residential zone with up to 2 dwelling units per acre because it is inconsistent with the Knox County Comprehensive Plan and the Growth Policy Plan. Is the applicant present? Is Mr. Berezanski here? Berezanski. Okay. Do we have any opposition? All right, Commission.
I'll make a motion to deny the PR planned residential zone for up to 2 dwelling units per acre because it is inconsistent with the Knox County Comprehensive Plan and Growth Policy Plan.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to deny per staff recommendation by Commissioner Midas, seconded by Commissioner Levinson. Seeing no other lights, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
16.
Next is agenda item 16. The applicant, Natalie Nordstrom. Location, south side of Thurman Lane, west of Woodson Drive, 1.89 acres. Present zoning is low-density residential. Zoning requested, planned residential. Existing land use, single-family residential. And density proposed up to 6 dwelling units per acre. Staff recommendation, approve planned residential zone up to 4 dwelling units per acre because it is consistent with Knox County Comprehensive Plan and due to the change of conditions in the area. Is the applicant present? And if you'll please state your name and address.
My name is Natalie Nordstrom. I live at 1536 Cliffside Lane in Knoxville.
Thank you. Do we have opposition? Any opposition? None signed up. All right. You may proceed if you'd like to comment.
Awesome. Well, just first off, thank you guys. I know it sounds like there's some volunteers. I'm so unfamiliar with this process, but I really appreciate everyone's time and hearing me out today. So good afternoon. You may have noticed from my slow wobble to the platform that I don't look like most of your presenters today. You would be correct. This is my first zoning meeting that I've ever attended, the first application I've ever done, and I'm due to have my 3rd child on Monday. So if you hear me short of breath, let's both just pretend it's the 9-month-old baby pushing on my lungs and not that I'm nervous presenting before you. But before we jump into it, let's address the elephant in the room, the public comments. Reading them through for the first time made me cry. The second time it made me laugh. And laugh or cry out of disagreement or disbelief. I laugh because it caused me to remember so many of the terrible, dreaded memories I've had regarding this property. If you read the reports and had any doubt of whether or not they were true, despite my better business sense, I'd implore you to believe them. Because although I didn't know everything listed, I knew enough to know that their stories were true and I could add to them. That said, although they are completely true, I do think that most truths forgo other truths, and hopefully those truths are just as relevant to you. When I first bought the property, I thought I was a genius. I'd listened to many real estate podcasts that claimed that trailer courts were sort of the next gold mine of the landlording movement. And sorry, I lost track of where I was. I was poised and ready to take my fortune. Instead, what I did was accidentally buy a rundown property with only 1 unit of 4 being paid, and I had some rather dangerous characters that I had to deal with. If we had time to go to dinner together, I would add a lot to the public comments. Like when I was a young, naive girl and promised that I'd do anything I could DIY myself. And I did, until the first time I DIY'd a remediation for bedbug infestation. Or the time that I had to sit in court over and over because I learned that every person on a lease has to separately be evicted. And the previous owner had put in 6 people who were not paying it. After a lot of money and a lot of hard lessons, I learned that although I didn't strike gold, I did have a property capable of homing great people and providing a price point that so many in Knoxville need, but so few landlords are offering. The more I respected the property, the more respect the tenants gave me. I now have amazing blue-collar tenants who care about the property and about their trailers and want to see me do more. They're salt-of-the-earth quality people who I trust to the point that I let them do work for me at much nicer properties, like the duplex I own in 4th and Gill. Over time, I've come to believe that many of my tenants deserve more than the trailers that I've provided them. Many would be great candidates to be looking for a first home purchase or even just a nicer home rental. But unfortunately, the market that gave me the privilege of chasing the American dream and becoming a landlord at 22 is not the same market that we're working with now. Many ask me to help them find homes under $1,200 in rent or under $200K in purchase price. And sadly, I cannot help because I cannot find them. My 1980s trailers are hitting the end of their reasonable use, and the greedy landlord in me would love to tear them down and just build 7 dwelling units, what you guys have recommended or the staff has recommended, and put in nice 2,200 square foot homes and sell them and forget all about the lessons and the tenants that I've learned at Thurman Lane. And finally, I'd get that gold mine that I'd wanted all along. But the Christian mom and landlord in me that loves my blue-collar tenants who cook me tamales when I pick up rent and give me great advice and work on all of my rentals doesn't want to build something that forgets about them and doesn't help the housing crisis that we have in Knox County. I believe that the best use of the land is to build sub 1,000 square foot homes at sub 200,000 sales prices. And I believe that that's what's best for the community. I believe there's just a lot of young families trying to make it in a very inflated world. This idea began for me in 2020 after I first saw the Richmond Orchard development, and I began to wonder, if they could do it, why couldn't I? Up until now, I haven't shared plans with tenants, neighbors, or almost anyone because my plan for the property really depends on what happens today. I've done too much and already invested so much in the purchase and repairs of the property that building sub 200,000 housing with only 7 units isn't possible. But at 11, the math works to do that. So, sorry, losing my breath, we'll blame the baby. So today, the question isn't what's good for me or what's good for the tenants or even what's good for the well-meaning neighbors. It's what's good for all of us citizens of Knox County. So I guess the question I'm asking you is, do we need more 3-2s at the price point that many of our blue-collar workers and friends and neighbors put them out of the market? Or do we need more quality sub $200,000 housing that provides a place for families to grow in a respectable place where they can build equity and thrive? I've told you my bias, but you're the committee responsible to all Knox County citizens, so I'll leave that choice to you and build my plans accordingly.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Nordstrom. Commission? Vice Chair Huber.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree we need affordable housing in Knoxville and Knox County. And I've looked at this pretty hard too, and you know, just as staff says, it is consistent. Planned residential is consistent with the comprehensive plan because the area has changed. I don't think I personally don't have a real problem with the 6 units an acre. It's actually in the urban growth boundary. We're not just in the planned growth. We're actually in the urban side of it, which to me, with all of it, is going to, increase density and want to be, lend itself to higher densities. With respect to that, I mean, Director, do we, in the suburban residential, how many units an acre does that allow up to?
Up to, I believe, 12.
Yeah, that was my recollection. So we've got something that's in the comprehensive use plan as allowing up to 12 units an acre, a request for 6 units an acre, and it's also in the urban growth boundary. I just wanted to kind of point that out. It's not the, the standard plan growth. It's designed to be higher. So I know there's some more commissioners. I'll let you, but I would be supportive of 6.
Commissioner Adams.
Yeah, I'm seeking clarity, maybe from staff or other commissioners. Just, I'm confused because it seemed like the applicant was asking, I couldn't completely tell what was being requested. Like, the 6 is in the applicant's form, but the recommendation is 4, but there was a lot of feedback in the applicant's statement. So I'm just trying to understand. She was asking for the 6? I'm sorry, I don't mean to ask you to get up.
Well, the applicant requested up to 6.
Up to
12 units
6.
per acre. Correct.
And maybe you could stay right in that seat there. The applicant is asking for 6. Staff has said 4 feels more appropriate for that area. I guess maybe staff could speak a little bit just about that adjustment down for that specific area. Maybe that will help both Commissioner Huber and myself.
Ms. Warner, would you like to comment?
Sure. I think at this location, we didn't see a need to really increase the density where it's at. We saw the planned residential zone is consistent with the area. It allows flexibility as there's no minimum lot size. It also allows other types of housing units, so you can do single-family, multifamily housing and duplexes. But we didn't see this location as someplace, it wasn't right on a collector road, as a good location to increase the density.
And right now, there are 4 properties on the parcel?
Yeah, there's 4 lots.
And so this would increase it to 8?
7.
Oh, okay, I'm with you. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Do you mind if I say something?
I invite you to go ahead.
Sorry. One of the reasons that I was opposing it is because in the current zoning, I can do up to 8. So it was a little disappointing to get a verdict that, yeah, you can change your zoning, but you can do 7. And I was told that, I think, when I called in by someone named Michael, but it was, it's questionable whether I would get 7 or 8 based on easements and clearances and such, but I could potentially put up to 8 as it stands right now. So it's a little bit of a bummer for me when I'm trying to get planned residential so that I can do more.
Commissioner Overton?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to support what Commissioner Huber said. I think density is extremely appropriate here, particularly because it's within the urban growth boundary, which means that we've already designated it as an area for growth. And to the point about the housing crisis and us needing more density, I just, I saw some numbers. I was looking at this, and I think that it's compelling that according to the National Association of Realtors, Knoxville, Tennessee has the 5th highest rent growth in the country. So, I mean, this is exactly what we need to do. This is exactly within land we've already designated for more density. And I think another compelling point to what the applicant was saying was that since 2019, Knoxville housing prices have grown 83%. That's some of the fastest growing housing prices in the country. And I think we can all agree that income and wages have not grown to that level with it. So I think just, aside from it being within the urban growth boundary, aside from the very compelling need for housing in this community, I think we can also take into account that there's commercial literally right down the road from it, which I think everyone can agree is supportive of more density to transition into other areas. So I'll be in favor of approving up to 6 units in this location.
Thank you. Vice Chair Huber.
Yeah, again, I would echo that. With again, being in the urban growth boundary, I mean, we spent a lot of time on the comprehensive use plan and in all the plans that are around it, above it, and below it. And it specifically, we're never going to get where we need to be, which is a balance in the market. The high end, the middle, and the lower. We're never going to get there unless we do allow, especially in the urban areas, more density. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve it at 6 dwelling units per acre because it is compatible and consistent with the comprehensive plan due to the change of conditions in the area.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice Chair Huber to approve up to 6 dwelling units per acre for the same reasons of staff recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Levinson and Commissioner Adams.
Thanks. I guess I just want to explain why I'm in favor of staff's recommendation. I don't disagree with what my fellow commissioners have said in terms of there being a housing shortage and wanting to look for density. I guess what I want to express is that I'm trying to be really cautious because that could be a reason for doing anything. And so I kind of put that over to the side and think about just the land use that we're specifically looking at on the map and the properties around it. Now, with the new plan that we have, that has guided us to be able to look at infrastructure in a different way, which I really appreciate, and last meeting helped us with that. So I fully admit I'm still getting accustomed to using the new plan, but when I look at the map and I see what else is there fully around it, and I hear the owner, wanting to increase that, recognizing that there's some balance there, I feel like staff got this right. So I'll be supporting staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Commissioner. And, I think staff, they're doing their job, and I think we're doing our job as best we can, and it's trying to strike that proper balance. And it may not be the most perfect process, but it's the best one we've got right now. So we do have a motion, and we're talking about, 1 or 2 units here. So we have a motion and a second. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Biggs.
I'll keep it brief, but I think just wanted to echo some of Commissioner Adams' comments. I'm, all for adding density in appropriate places to address the housing shortage. I think, just because it's within the urban growth boundary, it still is, not on a primary collector road, which I think is a practical concern here. So is this the best place to add increased density beyond kind of what's in the immediate vicinity? I think that's where I'm kind of having a little bit of a holdup with this. So I'll be supporting staff's recommendations, again, not because I don't believe that we need more density, but just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, Commissioner Biggs. All right, seeing no other lights, we have a motion and a second for up to the 6 dwelling units per acre proposed by Vice Chair Huber, seconded by Commissioner Levinson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have, I heard 3 noes. Can we just see yep, 3 noes. All right. Motion carries. Thank you. Next is agenda item 18. The applicant is Mahmoud Shorman. Location, east side of Lovell Road, north side of High Meadow Drive. Size of tract, 12,495 square feet. Present zoning is planned residential up to 3 dwelling units per acre with a technology overlay. Zoning requested, office, medical, and related services, OB, and technology overlay. Existing land use, agriculture, forestry, and vacant land. Staff recommendation, deny the OB zone because it would be an encroachment of a non-residential zone at the entrance to a residential subdivision. Excuse me, the technology overlay zone would be retained. Is the applicant present?
Good afternoon. I'm actually filling in for Dr. Shorman. My client had to be away and his flight was this morning, so I'm filling in to answer any questions or concerns.
All right, if you'll state your name and address, please.
Sean Smith, Dream House Construction, 9051 Executive Park Drive, Knoxville, 37923.
Thank you. Do we have any opposition? Seeing no opposition, would you like to add any comments?
No additional comment.
Okay, all right. Commission? All right. Commissioner Higgins?
I'm not sure if I completely agree with staff here, so I might need some more clarification. I understand that kind of the reason listed is that it's at the entrance of a residential subdivision, but I also see that it's on a 4-lane road. And, you know, it's not like I guess I could understand the subdivision aspect if maybe it was like behind a gate or something like that, but the way it's situated, I don't see the concern with it being at the entrance of a subdivision, and especially with it being an extension of so many other uses. And then I guess last thing I'll say is just that I definitely think that a mix of zonings and uses is always better than, or often better than not. And this being on a major roadway like this, I don't see any issues with it, but I'll love to hear other people's thoughts.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, Commissioner Midas.
I agree with Commissioner Higgins with the variation in different zones. The only problem with this is with staff and their point that it's mainly residential along that road. The fact that it's residential across the street, there's not really, is there any office on that corner there?
Ms. Bosquet, would you like to comment on that?
That corner right across the street from the property, or?
Right, yeah, adjacent, yeah, right there and on the other side.
So to the north is some commercial in the CATO with condition zone. That is a commercial property, it's a body shop, but the planned commercial zone north of the property is actually vacant right now.
So the one right where? Where's vacant?
This.
That's right there is vacant. Okay. And then across the street from High Meadow Drive, that's residential there and in vacant?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it just seems a little out of place, given where the current development is. And, you know, with that, I think I will support staff's recommendation.
Vice Chair Huber.
Yeah, I definitely see where staff is coming from with respect to that. However, I mean, I've always viewed office, OB, that type of thing as a transitional zone between heavier uses, if it's a heavier road or if it's the planned commercial next door. But if you look at that section of Level Road, as Commissioner Higgins pointed out, it's 4 lanes. There's somewhere between 18 and 20,000 cars a day that travel that road. That's not a subdivision road. Me personally, if I'm living in that first lot in, I mean, I would probably rather have an office, you know, a small office building or maybe even a duplex or something, because I'm not building, you know, a brand new $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 house next to a road that has 20,000 cars a day on it too, you know. So I understand where staff's coming from on that, but I would tend to lean more towards being okay with an office use there.
Commissioner Gill, please forgive me, these lights are so difficult to see.
I know, and I just turned
They're
it on
going to
when
get
you
me a
looked
chart
away.
up here where I can see when the light comes on, but yeah.
So I think this is perfect because I just pulled this up. I did want to kind of get some clarification. We're talking about having an office park, and it's directly adjacent to something that's supposed to be commercial. But as we look at our land use plan moving forward, it is very squarely in a corridor mixed use, which is specifically calling out office parks for that use. Not only that, it is 2 units or 2 plots further on, which currently have housing on them, are also in that potential corridor. So it seems that this is exactly what we had planned on as part of our land use, was to put an office park on a major road in a corridor mixed use area. Just kind of seems like this is what we had planned on.
Did that sound like a motion?
Yeah, given that, I would like to make a motion to approve the applicant's request. I don't know how to do that. 1 second, please.
Take your time.
I would like to approve the applicant's request for a OB rezoning as it is consistent with the county's future land use goals and yeah, motion.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the OB zone with the technology overlay by Commissioner Gill, and it was seconded by Commissioner Higgins, is that right? Okay, Commissioner Higgins, and I see Commissioner Adams.
I just have a question about the residential property that is beside, can you, thank you. Because if I'm correct, the 10637-202, that is the residential property, yes?
Yes, it is. I built that home as well.
Okay, so you're familiar with it?
Yes.
So how do we protect that, if that's going to have office, how do we protect that residence and the ones beside it? I know that we've had this discussion previously, like, well, we just wait till the concept plan comes our way and deal with it at that stage.
See, there are minimum required buffers when you go from office to residential, so that would be.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, we ready to vote? We've got a motion and a second to approve OB. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? We have one no. Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next is agenda item 21. The applicant is Matthew Regas, location southeast side of East Hendron Chapel Road, east side of Burnell Lane, 2.94 acres. Present zoning, agricultural. Zoning requested, plan residential. Existing land use, agricultural, forestry, vacant land. Density proposed, up to 4 dwelling units per acre. Staff recommendation, approve the plan residential zone up to 2 dwelling units per acre because it is consistent with surrounding development and the growth policy plan. And I see the applicant is before us. If you'll state your name and address, Mr. Regas.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Matthew Regas, 1712 Bickerstaff Boulevard, Knoxville, 37922. First off, many thanks to the commission for hearing and reviewing this case and the staff members for the conversations we've had over the last couple weeks. I would just ask that we proceed with staff recommendation.
Thank you. Do we have any opposition? Any opposition? Seeing no, okay. Commission.
I move we approve as per staff recommendation.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve per staff recommendation by Commissioner Levinson, seconded by Commissioner Browning. Seeing no lights, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is agenda item 22. Applicant Taylor D. Forrester, location Ball Camp Pike and Bakertown Road, 20.85 acres. Present zoning is planned residential up to 5 and 3.25 dwelling units per acre. Zoning requested, retain PR with up to 5 and 3.25 dwelling units per acre, but remove the non-disturbance condition. 10E23RZ is the reference. Existing land use, agriculture, forestry, vacant land. Staff recommendation, deny removal of the non-disturbance condition on slopes 25% or greater because it is inconsistent with the Knox County Comprehensive Plan. Is the applicant present?
Present.
Do we have opposition? Any opposition? Councilor Forrester, would you like to proceed or comment?
Yes, I was going to pass out.
Certainly. Thank you.
Taylor Forrester, 1111 North Shore Drive, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37919. Here on behalf of the property owner, although it's situated as a rezoning on the agenda. It's essentially just a request to remove or modify a condition that was placed on the rezoning exactly this time last year in 2023. My client did not own the property at that time. That property was under contract by a potential purchaser, developer. That person that was the applicant on that rezoning that agreed to that condition did not end up acquiring the property. There was reference at the agenda review committee, review meeting about that prior applicant owning a parcel to the east that they were going to use to access the rear portion of this property for access, whether by access easement, but a subdivision road to gain access to the rear portion. My understanding is that property owner, former applicant, still owns that property, but has not been willing to either grant an easement or sell that property. So the condition as it exists now is non-disturbance on the slopes of 25% or more in grade. The problem is that runs across the center of the property towards Ball Camp Pike. It essentially makes about 2/3 of the property inaccessible. What we're asking for is to remove or modify that condition so that we can build a subdivision road. We're not asking to develop lots in this area. We essentially cannot get to the rear portion of our property without removal or modification of that condition. It's approximately 20 acres in total. With this condition on here, we would not be able to access or develop 15 acres of the total 20 acres. Based on that condition and not allowing the accessibility, this was also discussed at a agenda review meeting about placing these conditions on at the time of a rezoning request and the problems and the unforeseen issues that creates, and this is the very example. It almost could even rise to the level of a regulatory taking where regulations under the police power of our legislative body, being County Commission, on rezonings has created some exaction or condition that impairs or negates the economic value of the property. And so what we have 20 acres and only able to develop 15 acres that could potentially rise to that level. Now, I've passed around two plans. One is kind of a mock site plan. The goal here is to develop 55 lots in total. And a staff report references it could be developed up to 79 lots. There's no plan to develop that. Again, we are fine to stay out of the steep slopes where we're asking for the condition to be removed for development of lots. We're not asking for lots to go there. We just need access. The other plan shows how the road would lay out in this area, and I think the total grading disturbance area on this sloped area is about 1.2 acres. So 1.2 acres of the entire 20-acre tract. That's a fairly nominal portion of the property, and again is a necessity for us to be able to develop the property. Staff commented in the report and at the review meeting about how they settled on 5 units up towards Ball Camp Pike and 3.25 at the rear. The net resulting density of the total development, as what we're proposing, is only about 2.7 acres in total. This portion that was 3.25, that is actually, the net result there for that section would be about 1.5 dwelling units per acre. Again, asking that the condition either be removed or that it be modified in a manner that would allow grading and disturbance of the area of 25% slope or more for the purpose of constructing and developing a subdivision road for the development. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Higgins.
Yeah, just first off, I have a question for staff because I know that the disturbance budget is based off the amount. Sorry, it's a percentage of disturbance based off the slope percentage. And I'm curious, I definitely think that would make sense for the lots, but for a road like this, is there any leeway for being able to run the road through here? I'm not sure who.
I can answer this, and Ms. Warner can weigh in on any additional questions. No, in order, because of the way that the slope is on this property, no. I mean, that's the applicant's concern, is that they can't get a road here with this condition on the property.
Is it possible to, if there was to be a motion to remove it, would it be possible to limit that to just the area that's based off this document that was submitted?
The document that's been put in front of you by the applicant is not a plan that's been submitted before it hasn't been submitted to our office for formal consideration.
Okay.
So I would caution you on
Of course.
further conditioning on a plan that's not an official plan that's been submitted.
Is it something that could be, I know they haven't come with a concept plan yet. Is this something that could be permitted during the concept plan phase?
Could what be permitted?
This disturbance, like as a variance?
You could direct staff to address this during that phase of the project if it gets to that phase. Is that what you're asking?
Mm-hmm. Because the reason I ask these questions, I think that it makes sense to be able to access the back of the property and to provide some allowances for that. However, I don't want to just, I couldn't support a blanket removal of the requirement. I think that would set a bad precedent, and I do think that, time and again, we talk about the process of rezoning, and then especially when we have a concept plan situation, being able to sort out details during that process. So, if this came with a concept plan and they needed to carve through a portion of that for a road, I think I would be confident that I would be supportive of it, because I understand that there is no other way to access that portion of the site. But again, just from a blanket approach like this, I can't support it. Thanks.
And I don't think the applicant was asking for that either. He made it very specific what the ask was, and it was just for a road.
I think it was just that it wasn't in the case file, as like this document not being in the case file made it seem like to me that the request was for a blanket removal. So I'm not sure if that should have been part of the conversation earlier on.
Commissioner Biggs.
But following up on Commissioner Higgins, I guess question, could we condition the removal not based on the provided site plan, but for use for a two-lane access road to be approved during the subsequent site plan? And
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you all could do that.
I think to me that seems like a reasonable approach. I would, if there's more conversation, happy to have it, but I would be happy to make a motion to make sure I say this right. To retain the PR with up to 5 and 3.5 dwelling units per acre, but remove the non-disturbance condition for access via a two-lane road to be approved during site plan, concept plan review.
Okay, so really the only modification we're making in this motion is to provide access, adequate access only, not for lots. Yes.
Can we
Via a
make,
two-lane road. Councilor Forrester, do you?
I think leaving the condition as it is and maybe saying, except for the construction of a subdivision road.
Give everybody a chance to ponder that.
So it's just adding an exception instead of removing the condition is what you're proposing?
Yeah, I think that'd be fine, yeah, is leave the condition and accept that it does not apply, other than for the construction and development of a subdivision road. So just kind of one carve out.
And then I guess at the development plan moment, if he comes in with something crazy, we can.
Right, if the subdivision road's a 4-lane road with a massive.
Interstate.
Yeah, okay.
Whole entire.
Right, yeah, okay. I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, so I think Director Brooks has something that maybe Commissioner Biggs and I can recite. It says, approve the removal of the non-disturbance condition. No, wait, right? You want me to start with that or no? Director Brooks, you read it. She's got all this scribble on here.
How about this? Maintain the non-disturbance condition on slopes 25% or greater because it's consistent with the Knox County Comprehensive Plan, with the exception of a 2-lane road, subdivision road. I don't know if that captures it adequately. Does that work?
Counselor Blakeney is
Maybe
fine with that?
Yes, and Commissioner Adams has a light on.
We'll get to her. Commissioner Adams? Okay, wait a minute now, before we recognize Commissioner Adams. So we do have, you're good with that
I am.
motion? Did we get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Levinson. Now let's talk a little bit with Commissioner Adams.
Okay, thank you. And this is for council, our council. Yeah. If I can talk for just a second, and then if you can respond. So in my opinion, the value of placing restrictions, and I'll use that word, on a parcel like this at the rezoning stage is essentially to provide some type of guidance about particularities of that property. And so that essentially is providing some parameters. So this was a design project. You know, you need to use the color blue. And then anything beyond that, use the color blue. And so that's what has happened here. There's a parameter that's been placed to say anyone that is going to do something with this property needs to be concerned about these aspects. And the applicant has placed this idea in front of us and said that, that they don't mind adhering to that parameter just so long as they don't have to adhere to that parameter, essentially. And my concern is that while this idea that's been placed in front of us is expressing a concern that they can't do what they want to do, this is not, the concern I have is like you brought up this regulatory issue, which I feel like is a little bit threatening. and it's not that we're preventing them from doing anything with their property. It's that this parameter says, well, there's certain things you can't do. So my question is to council, should I be concerned about this regulatory comment that's come from the applicant? Am I viewing this incorrectly as we've essentially just have one parameter here that we need to consider?
Right, you're not viewing it incorrectly, and we should always be concerned about those parameters because they are constitutionally and statutorily based, so we do have to keep those things in mind. But I will say, with all respect to Councilor Forrester, he would, I'm sure, agree with me that that type of finding is very extreme, that a body such as this to actually undertake a taking, what I view here, I'm not a court, I'm not speaking, that would be a court to make that determination. It's very fact-specific and relies on access to the property and how the property can be accessed and whether the action of the governing body was rational. So what you're describing, I think all of those things have to be considered, but it is a pretty high standard, in my view, for there to actually be a taking along the lines that that Councilor Forrester hinted at.
Okay, so then I'm going to feel comfortable viewing this and the fact that it has a parameter placed on it at the zoning stage, that I can't support just taking that away because the applicant is saying, well, we can't do exactly what we want to do. It's not that they can't use the property, that they can't develop it. They can't develop it in the certain way that they'd like to. So for that reason, I can't support the adjustment to, having that stipulation that if you want to put a road in, then you can disturb stuff. I'm not okay with that.
Thank you. Commissioner Midas.
This piece of property has come before our commission twice before, and in both cases, one, they denied it because of the steep slopes and the density they were wanting. And the second time, the only reason they granted the density was because they had access where they didn't have to disturb those steep slopes. You know, we've seen what's happened with some of the development that's happened in East Tennessee and Western North Carolina. You know, our report clearly states here that Planning Commission is concerned of runoff, potential runoff from this disturbance. You know, what happens if the road collapses? We get an inordinate amount of rain, road collapse, and there's these houses that are, blocked and do not have a way of reaching access, help, resources. I won't be supporting this. I believe that the previous commissions had this right, and who says in the future that something's not going to be able to be worked around so that they can access that piece of property in a more safe way without disturbing these slopes?
Thank you, Commissioner Midas. Vice Chair Huber.
I guess maybe I'm the only one that has a bit of a different opinion about that.
You're not the only one. We have a motion in a second.
Well, in general, I mean, I think I've made it somewhat clear, my opinion, that this type of thing, I'm not a fan of restricting slopes like that at the zoning stage. I mean, I believe we have a process in place that is for that, and that's going to be the concept plan and the development plan that comes back through following the zoning. And I think this is actually a case in point. We had a changing condition where there was a restriction placed on this property that said anything over 25%, you can't touch it. Just can't do it. It doesn't matter what you can do. And at that time, there was a different access. Now we move forward, conditions have changed, and we have a zoning in place where it says you can access the lower portion off of Ball or Ball Camp Road, whichever it is, but you can't even access the top. Now, my question, and this might be for Mr. Elliott, if we were in this situation, I'm asking because I don't know the answer to this. If you were to get an application from a builder, say we moved ahead and we would not allow this non-disturbance buffer, says you can't touch anything over 25%, the front of that property got developed, and there was one stub road, yet going up back there for one house on 2/3 of this property, would you even be allowed to grant that permit because there's a non-disturbance restriction? Could you even put a driveway in it? Now, we're not talking about a subdivision road, but could you even put a driveway?
I would say no. The condition is it's non-disturbance, so I would say no, they can't disturb it.
That's kind of where my mind goes. It hamstrings you because you have to live within, the whatever's approved by county commission and recommended by us. That's kind of where my point is. We're bifurcating this property, not intentionally. I mean, before we had a good plan. Part of it's coming off Bakertown Road, part's coming off Ball Road, but now conditions have changed. I think this is a good solution to add the road in between there, but I would like to caution, I think it's a slippery slope at best, when we get into conditioning slopes at the stage. Now, I don't mind talking about it. We're going to end up talking about hillside and ridgetop protection in the next couple of years, things like that. Totally open to that, but restricting it at the zoning stage, I think is, we should be very cautious with that.
Thank you, Vice Chair Huber. Commissioner Midas.
Yeah, I guess I appreciate Commissioner Huber's comment. I think that the only reason this 3.25 was granted on that section was because of that road. because they knew they were going to have access. So, I mean, now they're not having access. So, you know, if that was the case a few years ago when they had this rezoning, they probably wouldn't have granted that. Correct?
Yeah. As far as I know, that you'd have to ask council that, but what I'm seeing now is, and it's not part of the record, it hasn't been turned in, but again, that gets back to my point of, we don't know until the concept plan, and what he's showing us now is more like 2.7, 2.8 dwelling units an acre, not 5, not even 3.5.
Well, I guess for me, it's not really even the density that's there. It's the fact that they have to cut through the steep slopes in order to access it, regardless of that density.
Right, great, on somebody's private property, and it's their property, so.
Okay, Commissioner Higgins.
Thank you. Yeah, when we first started talking about this, I was a little bit more sympathetic to the idea of use of a property, and that was mainly because I missed the section. I'd heard the mention of alternative routes. I'd missed the aspect that at the approved rezoning, that aspect was discussed, and that's why we did a chopped up zoning. If that had not been brought into the conversation, then there would have been no point in providing two different density types. So it was very much dependent on that. And so for us to go back on that, I mean, I think that if there's any legal concerns here, that should be between the seller, the buyer, the current owner, and the previous seller. If they sold a piece of property saying, yeah, here's the density here, and didn't mention the fact that it was conditioned on not disturbing this access, then we shouldn't have to go back. They should be discussing, hey, you know, we were sold this property with this condition, therefore, you know, you need to provide this or something. But I don't think, I'm completely against a situation like this where, you know, a year or two ago, we approved something based on the discussion and added a condition, and then to come back and now try to redo that. I do agree, as Commissioner Adams said, that providing parameters, and then when you get to the concept plan, I'm completely in support of making adjustments as needed. But in this situation, the only reason that the back portion of the property has the zoning it has is because we were told that there would be an alternative access. And I completely agree. If there was not that alternative access, I don't think that it would have that zoning, so we wouldn't be having this conversation if that wasn't what we were told. So now that I see more about it, I completely agree with staff. And I'll also say, you know, mentioning the runoff, we have, I don't know how many millions of neighbors right now in surrounding states that are suffering from the result of water flows and flooding. And every time that we add impervious area, we contribute to that. And we need to be very thoughtful of where we're adding that impervious area and how we're doing that. And I completely agree. We don't want to increase runoff because that just puts water directly into these stormwater systems and adds to that burden. And in a situation like this, I don't think it makes sense. So I agree with staff on this.
Commissioner Overton.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I agree with what the principals people are saying. I think my issue is that I don't think we should deny the property owner a reasonable condition to be able to use their property in the way they understood it. They would be able to use it when we did rezone it however long ago, based on speculation of what would have happened had the other property owner not sold, had the other easement not been there. I don't think that we should make decisions based on speculation. The second point I wanted to make is I agree with the flooding aspect, and obviously more than ever we need to be cognizant of water flows and that, but I think that some of the conditions that led to what happened in North Carolina are beyond the purview of this body. I think that we need to I'm not going to go on a rant, I promise, but I do think that we need to consider speaking to our state, local, and federal representatives about things like climate change and infrastructure budgeting before we start depriving property owners of their right to use their property, because those systems have, in my opinion, failed us. So I support the exception. I think it's reasonable, and I think that, concerns about how much property they're damaging, again, can be addressed at the development stage. I'm in support of this motion.
Okay, we have a motion, let's see, we have somebody else here. Oh, yeah, okay. Commissioner Anderson.
Yeah, actually, I think Commissioner Overton covered a lot of what I would say. But I also think we talk about the 25% or greater slope, and I feel like when I drive home from work every day, I drive on a road that was cut into a hill with greater than a 25% slope. And so to the extent that a road can be safely and responsibly built through there, and maybe someone wants to chime in and confirm or deny that, I just don't see why this would be denied. I mean, we talk about we have a need for housing. Well, yes, this may not be affordable housing, but the fact that you have more houses on the market creates more affordable housing. I mean, it trickles down. So I do think that we need to think about maybe a more common sense approach to just approving this.
Well, I know hillsides can be somewhat an emotional discussion among this group, but I think to put some of the comments in context, let's not forget that if we're going to bring in what happened in our region, with or without this road, I think 30 inches of rain in 24 hours, we would have seen runoff regardless of whether the road was there or not. So I'll leave that, and it's time for a vote. Commissioner Adams, you'd like to comment?
Just one thing to Commissioner Anderson, and I don't know which road you're driving on for, and you don't need to tell me, but I don't think that the issue is that it's never been done. I think the issue is that this body and the bodies that continue to approve these things are looking at them differently. And we've started to put into place measures that can give us tools to do that. The new comprehensive plan being one of those. And that's why when I see something come through like this, where there's already been discussion and dialogue and a decision made and a protection put there, for it to come back and ask to have that removed so we can have a road, just really doesn't sound right to me. So.
Well, and I don't disagree, but I would say that when we talk about the historical things and you look back at maybe the lack of standards that were in place 40 years ago, I mean, we're a long way from that. And I don't think that, yeah, I mean, and the road I drive on was probably done in an unsafe and dangerous manner 100 years ago. It's okay, and I have every confidence that what would be built today would be a lot better. But I still get back to, just because it's there and there is a slope there, if that doesn't mean that you can't safely and responsibly build a road on it, I don't think we should prohibit a landowner from using the backside of their property.
Commissioner Adams.
Yeah, thanks. I don't think it's as much safety as it is about disturbance and protecting the hillsides, that we don't get more of them. We've got the ones that we've got, and if we don't take care of them and we just cut roads through them, that's why there's a percentage there, and it's not just any hillside. It's graded, and staff guides us and gives us those recommendations. So I really rely on those things to help me make those decisions. So that's all I'll say on it.
Commissioner Gill.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. As a new commissioner, this is probably the first time I've been extremely troubled with how this has gone, so I feel like I need to make a couple of comments. It's pretty obvious that when this came before the body before, that the entire intent and we're a problem-solving board, clearly. I've seen many of you come up with creative solutions to make sure that we're striking the correct balance. But this body approved a density on the back half of a property subject to a speculative easement being provided by a property owner. We provided that. We made that as our plan. We didn't actually put that in our conditions on the actual zoning. We just said don't disturb, but it was completely contingent on whether or not we had access from an easement on another road. And from there, money changed hands, developers brought land, a lot of things happened. And now what we're saying in the long run is that we're being asked to deny that property based on the understanding, and I'm uncomfortable denying a property owner the right to use land, that they bought a property under the understanding that they had this zoning, based on in my opinion, a mistake the body made when we conditioned something without actually considering the fact that they don't have there had no easement in place at that time. So now we're in a position where we're having to basically correct a mistake that we made previous to this. And so I am sensitive and I'm understanding of hillside protection. It's something that's very important, but this isn't before the body for the first time. It's before the body after we're coming back to correct a mistake that was made. I think that in this case, I completely understand both sides of this conversation, and those commissioners are going to vote against it or for it based on their viewpoint on that. It's just very uncomfortable as a new member on this body to be asked to deprive either a property owner rights or go against what I think is a very valuable thing, which is hillside protection, when we made a mistake before, and now we're being asked to either hold on to something that was made in mistake and save our pride, or allow a body or a property owner to utilize that. So I think that in this situation, I'm probably going to, me personally, support the motion to allow this access road, and with the understanding that we need to think critically on how we condition land use when we're doing conditionings with hillside protection in the future. This is a mistake that we should not continue to make.
Thank you. Commissioner Adams.
I guess I don't understand the usage of mistake. I think, I having been on this body for 5 years now, I see that as a message being sent forward that however the discussion went, it was, okay, we're going to be okay with this, but only if you protect this hillside. And so that message moving forward, we're now being asked to not protect that hillside. I appreciate what Commissioner Higgins said, that it sounds like there may have been some peculiarities in terms of how this was sold, or maybe things weren't clearly articulated, and that's speculation. I mean, maybe everything was, and now the applicant is just coming and asking for a change. But I don't think that there was a mistake made, except that we're being asked to go backwards and remove that protection that was placed there.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and that motion, Director Brooks, go ahead and read us that motion. It's been a while since we heard it.
Certainly. Let's see if I get this right. I gotta put my glasses on. The motion is to maintain the non-disturbance condition on slopes 25% or greater because it is consistent with the Knox County Comprehensive Plan, with the exception of allowing a 2-lane subdivision road.
Thank you. All right, so you heard the motion. We're ready to vote. Commissioner Midas.
Well, I was just going to make a comment. My understanding, in response to Commissioner Gill's comments, was that it originally came before commission. They denied the 5 dwelling units per acre. Then they came back, and the only reason they allowed it was because this backside had access to 3.25.
I think that's why I am uncomfortable, because the only reason we're sitting here today was because of that speculative access on the backside. We shouldn't have had approved that at all if there was any indication that we wouldn't have had that access was a permanent easement that was in place, because it's very clear that we want to protect that steep slope. So we approved that anyway, and then clearly that didn't come to fruition. So now we have a condition that was based on something that wouldn't have been supported at all.
That's right. That's why they put the condition in there, to make certain that that slope was not being disturbed. And now, because they can't have access to it, they're going to have to disturb it, and we're going back against what they recommended.
Thank you, Commissioner Midas. Vice Chair Huber.
Yeah, just to comment on the same stuff, and I'm with you, Commissioner Gill. I mean, it is kind of an unusual situation. However, I mean, we get rezoning requests every month that was zoned something else. Maybe it was a month ago, maybe it was 10 years ago. I mean, we constantly get new zoning requests of things that have been zoned. I don't see this as any different. Now, Commissioner Midas, you mentioned that the staff and this board turned down 5 units an acre on the entire property. My speculation would be, had this thing come to us with the slope in the middle with a request at 5 units an acre, probably it would have got knocked back down to 3, or, over the whole thing, not 3.5 on the front, 5 on the back. They would still look at the totality of it and say, okay, let's do 2.5, or let's do 3, or whatever the scenario is. Yes, 5 was denied on the whole thing. 5 was approved on the back because at the time they had a different access. Now that's gone away. So to me, we just have to look at it with fresh eyes and the information we have today, not what we had a year ago, because conditions have changed. So just making a comment about that we get rezoning requests, new zoning requests all the time, and we have to make our decisions based off the information that we have currently, not the information we had a year ago. Thank you.
Okay. We're ready to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I think I heard 3 noes. Look at, show me the noes. Yeah, 3 noes. You get those, Mr. DeArmond? Okay, thank you.
24.
On to item 24. Subdivision is 3239 George Light Road. Applicant developer, Masana Investments, LLC. Location west side of George Light Road, east side of Pellissippi Parkway, north of Beaver Glade Lane. 6.71 acres. Zoning is planned residential up to 5 dwelling units per acre with a technology overlay. Existing land use, agriculture, forestry, vacant land. Proposed use, attached residential subdivision. Number of lots, 33. We have 1 variance. This is going to require 4 motions. 1 for variance, 1 for alternative design standards, 1 for concept plan, and 1 for development plan. The staff recommendation, and I'll read each of the 4. Approve the request, the motion 1 variant is on the variance, approve the requested variance to reduce the minimum K value from 25 to 20 between stations 2+45.12 and 2+15.71 Road A, along with A, B, and C conditions. Do I need to spell those out, Counselor?
Yes.
Thank you. A, the steep topography through the middle of the property causes a deviation with the vertical curve. B, the required access from George Light Road causes the roadway to go through steep topography. C, the granting of the variance will not be detrimental to public safety, health, or welfare because the shortened vertical curve meets American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials standards. Motion 2, alternative design. Approve the alternative design standard based on the justifications provided by the applicant and recommendations of the Knox County Department of Engineering and Public Works. Motion 3, concept plan. Approve the concept plan subject to 6 noted conditions. Motion 4, approve the development plan for up to 33 attached houses on individual lots as shown on the development plan, subject to 4 conditions. So anyone making a motion, you won't have to recite all that. I've already done it. Just say per staff recommendation. I may never get a motion. Okay. Is the applicant present?
Yes, Drew Staton, P.O. Box 11315, Knoxville, Tennessee 37939.
Do we have opposition? Seeing no opposition, would you like to proceed?
No, thank you.
All right. Commission. Commissioner Adams.
I have a question about the concept plan, if I can ask it. And this is a design question, and we don't go there very often, but when I looked at what was in the packet, on the side elevation of the concept, there's one little tiny window, and there's a giant wall of no window. And I just wondered why that was. And I'll tell you the context from which I'm coming, which is where communities have special zones, and they talk about just making sure that there aren't giant blank walls. So I'm just curious about the design there.
Unfortunately, I can't speak to that because this was from our builder. We're just doing the lot development at this point.
But aren't we responsible for approving the concept plan as in our packet? Yeah.
I believe those are requirements from the TDCA, the architectural control stuff that I had to send to them, I believe.
The elevations are part of the development plan.
So the elevations aren't part of the concept plan?
No, it's under the development.
We don't have those type of design standards for this
For
property.
this?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Chair will entertain a motion if we have no other discussion.
Make a motion to approve per staff recommendation.
Let's talk about what thing you're waiting for first.
Motion 1 related to the variance.
Yes, motion 1 on the variance per staff recommendation, please.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Huber, seconded by Commissioner Anderson on motion 1 related to the variance per staff recommendation. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion on the alternative design standard.
Make a motion to approve the alternative design standards based on the justifications provided by the applicant and the recommendations of Knox County Engineering and Public Works.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Huber to approve motion 2, the alternative design standard, per staff recommendations, seconded by Commissioner Anderson. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Make a motion to approve the concept plan up to 6 conditions.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Huber, seconded by Commissioner Anderson, to approve the concept plan subject to the noted 6 conditions. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Make a motion to approve the development plan for up to 33 attached houses on individual lots as shown on the development plan subject to 4 conditions.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Huber related to motion number 4 on the development plan, seconded by Commissioner Anderson. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is agenda item 26. Subdivision is Whisper Ridge. Applicant developer Ball Homes LLC. Location western terminus of Shadow Branch Lane west of Whisper Ridge Lane. 34.26 acres. Zoning is planned residential, 1 to 3 dwelling units per acre. Existing land use, agriculture, forestry, vacant land, right-of-way, and open space. Proposed use, detached residential subdivision. 102 lots. Subdivision variances required. We have no variances. We do have, looks like we're going to need a total of 3 motions. 1 related to alternative design standards, 1 to the concept plan, and 1 related to the development plan. Motion 1, staff recommendations, approve the alternative design standard based on the justification provided by the applicant and recommendations of the Knox County Department of Engineering and Public Works. Motion 2, approve the concept plan subject to 13 noted conditions. Motion 3, approve the development plan for up to 102 detached residential lots subject to 1 noted condition. Is the applicant present?
Oh, yes, the applicant's present from Ball Homes, and I'm here to represent them. Ryan Hickey and John Valiant. And I'm John Valiant.
Counselor Valiant, if you would give your address, please.
We fully accept the staff.
If you'd give your address, please.
Oh, 800 South Gay Street.
Okay. Do we have any opposition? We do have opposition. Would you like to proceed with your comments, Mr. Valiant, or would you like to defer to the opposition's comments?
I'd like to proceed briefly and reserve. We're willing to accept the staff's recommendation.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have Mr. Charles Wright. If you'll state your name and address, please.
Charles Wright, 6085 Whisper Ridge Lane, Coreyton, Tennessee. And I sent in 4 pages of a petition from our community that we should be able to pull it up so all could see for just a few minutes.
That was sent to everyone.
That, okay? So you have it? All
we
right,
have it.
great. First, thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of our wonderful residents of Whisper Ridge subdivision. They are a good and wholesome group of people with a good number of us in our retirement years. To be clear, we are not in opposition to Phase 2 as it was originally approved in 2005. In 2005, Phase 1, which consists of the current residence, was approved for 57 lots, which consists today of 41 homes. Phase 2 was approved for 70 lots, for a total of 119 lots. The current proposal for Phase 2 is an additional 102 lots, 32 more than was originally approved. It is safe to say that if the proposal is passed, that will mean at least 200 plus additional vehicles traveling in and out of our one and only small entrance and exit. I am speaking in opposition to the current proposal being considered today. The proposed Phase 2 is not in character with the current community of Phase 1. Phase 1 is a beautiful community of diverse house styles, mainly single-level living, with only 4 two-story houses. Our typical lots are approximately 90 feet wide, while the typical lot size in the proposed addition is approximately 55 feet wide. That is an increase of 32 lots from that which was approved in 2005. The houses in the proposal are all two-story, with little distance between them. Thus, the reason for the increase in lots from the approved 70 to the proposed 102. Again, I stress we are not in opposition to Phase 2 as approved in 2005. We knew that a Phase 2 would in all probability someday be added. But the proposed Phase 2 is out of character with the current development and is not what was approved and promised when we purchased our homes. In addition, we recently learned that the northern one half of the property in the proposal is in the rural land designation of future land use map. My pages are stuck. There we go. Now, I will speak briefly about the traffic issue. We know a traffic study was conducted and submitted. It is one thing to look at a traffic study on paper and quite another to live in the area and experience the daily flow. The one and only entrance and exit to our community is off of Maloneyville Road, a narrow two-lane road, particularly on our end of it. Often, I have witnessed vehicles traveling at excessive speeds. Anyone traveling the road today will notice the black rubber marks to prove my point. Sight distance is an issue. There is a blind rise to the right of the entrance. The study estimates the sight distance to be 465 feet. I walked it off yesterday, and I believe it is closer to 350 feet. One thing I know is that multiple times I have turned left onto Maloneyville Road after seeing that anything coming to the right, not seeing anything coming to the right, and once on Maloneyville Road, seeing through my rearview mirror a vehicle immediately on my bumper. If the proposal is approved, which will lead to approximately 300 vehicles turning in and out of our one and only exit and entrance, I envision multiple accidents are likely to happen.
Mr. Wright, if you could wrap up, you're out of time.
Pardon? I got one more paragraph. May I
Please.
finish?
Okay.
Lastly, we live in a beautiful area. East Tennessee is a gem. People have been moving here, and many others will do so in the future. We are aware of that. We simply ask that future developments be in sync with the character of existing communities and that sufficient planning and infrastructure development not lag behind the quick and hasty rush to develop new subdivisions. We humbly ask the Commission not to revoke what was approved in 2005. Please do not force upon us a new development that is not compliant with what was approved in 2005 and is out of character with our community and what was promised when we purchased our homes. We do not want our community to look hodgepodged. The decision doesn't have to be made today. It can wait. We invite any and all of your members to visit our community and talk with us and allow us to share with you in a visual way our concerns. And one other thing that has recently come to our attention as people have researched Ball Homes online, and they have found some very negative reviews.
Mr. Wright, your time is up. Yep, I've been very gracious with the time. Your time is up.
Okay. Thank you again for the opportunity to talk.
Councilor Valiant, we'll add 1 minute to your guys' comments.
I think it's
If you
best
need it.
that, Ryan answer some of the questions that he had, comments.
Ryan Hickey, 1914 Pinnacle Point Way. I just want to give some background and information to you guys on this site. We did not develop or build in phase 1 of this site. This was approved originally as one plan back in 2005, which that plan will have now expired. The property does have the density that allows for what we have shown here, the number of lots we have shown. In addition to that, we've completed a traffic impact study that showed that the entrance intersection will operate appropriately in both directions. There's also been, our engineers have determined that we have sight distance in both directions. We're meeting every subdivision regulation. We're only asking for one alternative design standard, and that was based on comments from MPC staff. We'd originally proposed 2 cul-de-sac roads, and they wanted to increase connectivity within the subdivision, so we connected the roads together. In addition, we have a stub out that they requested to an adjoining parcel, and so we're just asking for staff recommendation. We feel like we've met MPC's, what MPC wanted, and if you have any other questions for me, let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Hickey. Commissioner Adams.
I've got a question. You spoke very quickly, and you said something that I couldn't quite grasp.
Okay.
It was, you're saying that your company was not the developer for phase 1, and then you said something expired? What?
The concept plan from 2005 would be expired now. There was a previous concept plan done on this property.
Can someone explain to me the expiration date of a concept plan?
So applicants have, once they have an approved plan, they have 3 years to begin construction or pull permits or have some sort of activity occur on that property. So it's called vesting. And if there is no activity, then yes, concept plans can expire.
So in this case, thank you very much for answering that. In this case, how does that then impact the homeowners who, it sounds like from the opposition side, they feel like they were told that if there is the second phase and that it would be developed in the same manner, how does that get ironed out?
Well, if you think about the time period of this, so 2005, I mean, there were a lot of plans that had been approved from 2000 to 2005 that probably didn't move forward because of market conditions around that time.
Sure.
And so, so I'm not sure if I'm directly following your question, but yeah, there's probably still a number of plans out there that were approved, never acted upon, and so they're no longer vested.
I'm tracking on that. My question, I guess, now that I understand that vesting process and the expiration date of a concept plan, is the circumstance of an existing development, a phase one of a development, and that here comes phase two, and it sounds like the persons who are in phase one are fine with phase two, like go ahead, but they're surprised because it's not meeting the expectations both in density and in design standards. So that seems to be the objection, and I'm just trying to understand our body's role in that, if there is one.
And Mr. Reynolds can correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm looking at these two properties are not going to be connected. You know, like when you're looking at the site plan here, it's pulled up here.
So,
could be wrong,
access is, access is going through the existing Whisper Ridge subdivision. But to your question, as developments change hands, a lot of times the new developer has a different idea. So even if the original concept plan was not, if it was still vested and they could still act on it, the new developer could still submit a new application and do a different lot layout, and it will request it. So there's really nothing that says, like, that puts anything in stone. Actually, it's always could be a new application to modify a design or request them.
So when we had agenda review, as I understood the case that day, and we talked about it in the context of the growth, the new comprehensive plan, what the proposal was seemed to make sense, but I'm concerned hearing what the applicant, Mr. Wright has phrased about just the difference in expectations and how different that feels from what they had anticipated. So thanks for the clarity. I'll continue listening to conversation.
All right. Commissioner Barger.
I was not at agenda review, I apologize, and I'm all for connectivity, but since this is completely different than phase one, is there a possibility that the entrance to the subdivision could be on your little skinny easement type of thing that I see right there?
No, that's I believe that's a KUB sewer easement, actually.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to have three potential motions on this. Chair will entertain. Go ahead. Vice Chair Huber.
Yeah, just more of a comment in general about the area. Totally understand where you're coming from. That said, again, we referred to the comprehensive use plan and the plans that are in place, and there was a lot of discussion about that area of Knox County being part of it in rural, part of it in a planned growth area. The rural, it's not too far. If you can zoom out on that area, maybe click on the parcel and then zoom out, but turn on the growth policy plan, you'll see how much area around it is actually in the growth policy plan as rural, which limits it to 2 units an acre. So there's a lot of that out there. So the planned growth area is designed to be a slightly higher density than the 2 units. We've got a parcel of property that's zoned by right 3 units, and they can request up to that maximum density. I think it's still within, it's below 3 units an acre total when you add the first phase in. Is that right? So the zoning is, we're not asking for a zoning change. It's more of, in my opinion, changing conditions. We're talking about 20 years have passed, and we've been through a boom and a bust and a whole lot of in between. So, I mean, I know it's a slightly different product than what you guys have. But really, I would imagine the only real difference is going to be the yards are going to be a little smaller, the housing, the pricing will probably be very similar to what you have currently, so I would be as supportive of the concept plan.
May I have one more minute?
Well, may I say something before he has one more minute? I don't want anybody to be confused that Ball Homes or anybody from Ball Homes had anything to do with Phase 1 and made any promises about Phase 2. So I think you ought to know that. I think that concerned one of the commissioners, that somebody made a promise that when this gentleman's subdivision was developed, that these folks had something to do with it. So, and whoever was in Phase 1 of this thing has absolutely nothing to do and can't say what's going to happen at a future development. And there was no promises made by any of our folks to that.
Yeah, I hope we don't get hung up on old concept plans versus proposed concept plans, because, you know, you may have a bad developer with a bad idea that got one approved that doesn't work. And so we need to look at these plans as they come, and there's a reason they expire. Commissioner Adams?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And completely understand, Mr. Valiant, that your client is not responsible for Phase 1. Got that. I do want to ask Mr. Wright, you had some comment, if you could add that very quickly, something maybe in the dialogue there.
Yeah, if the zoning like that is changed, shouldn't the residents be made aware? And that is a point. Now, this is going to be one basically subdivision as a whole, because we're going to be using the one and only entrance and exit. They will come in about 150 yards, and then they will make a left-hand turn on Shadow Branch Road. And from my house, at about 150 feet, I'm going to be staring at 4 or 5 two-story homes side by side. And so it is, we are all, it's going to be one, but the traffic is going to be immensely increased.
Thank you for adding that. Commissioner Hill, I want to thank you for just helping me understand some of the concept plan issues. And I feel like I believe that most of the time when we see these Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, and they're coming back to us, they're either closer together or we're talking about the connectivity issues. We're not talking about the density issues that this case brings up. So I think that's why I was struggling with it a little bit. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Barger?
I just want to make a motion to approve the alternative design standard based on the justification provided by the applicant and approve it planned, subject to the 13 conditions.
Second.
Okay, let's see. Hang on one second here. I'll make sure I'm keeping pace. So motion 1 is related to the alternative design standard, right?
Yes.
Is that the motion you're making?
Yes.
Okay. Per staff recommendation.
Second.
And that was by Commissioner Barger, seconded by Commissioner Levinson. Seeing no lights, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. How about motion number 2?
Yes, make a motion to approve the development plan for up to 102 detached residential lots subject to 1 condition.
Wait a minute. How about,
Did I miss one?
how about approve the concept plan subject to the 13 conditions? That's our second motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I read that one already. My apologies. Approve the concept plan subject to the 13 conditions.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Barger, seconded by Commissioner Levinson to approve concept plan subject to 13 conditions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. On to number 3.
Motion to approve the development plan for up to 102 detached residential lots subject to the one listed condition.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Barger to approve the development plan per staff recommendation, seconded by Commissioner Levinson. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Let's take a 10-minute break. Come back at 5.
Thank you, Commissioners.
3, what? Come back at, no, 5 till 4, not 5 o'clock. Next is agenda item 34. Agenda item 34. Applicant is Josh Hahn, Folks, if you all could be seated, please, we'd like to get the meeting going. The applicant is Josh Hahn, east side of West Martin Mill Pike, south of Hialeah Drive, 5.22 acres. Present zoning, RN1, hillside protection. Zone requested, RN2, hillside protection. Existing land use, agriculture, forestry, vacant land. Staff recommendation is to deny the RN2 district because it does not meet the criteria for a rezoning. Is the applicant present?
Yeah,
If you-
Mike Messina, 855 Baylor Circle, speaking on behalf of the applicant.
All right. Do we have opposition? Any opposition? Seeing no opposition, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I do have a couple handouts here if I could.
Sure. Okay.
Here's a copy of our concept.
All right. Thank you.
All right, so to summarize, we're asking for RN2 density over RN1. We're looking to provide affordable housing in Knoxville. That's what we do. Our client that we work with, Knox Mob, that's their specialty, and we've been doing this for a while. So RN2 would allow us, well, before I get started on that, let me say this. I think a lot of the staff not recommending this has a lot to do with some assumptions that were made that are not actually factual with our concept. So a lot of the pushback was over Martin.
Sir, let me say this.
Yes.
I don't think that criteria is considered, we certainly don't consider that here within this body. And I think if you read the comments, they're saying denying it because it does not meet the criteria for a rezoning. It has nothing to do with the concept plan.
Okay, yeah, well, just talking about their recommendations and explicitly, it mentions that, you know, using Martin Mill Pike as an entrance, but we're not using Martin Mill Pike as an entrance. Okay. We're actually using Grayview Lane or Grayview Drive on the backside of the property, which actually alleviates a lot of the issues that are brought up. There'll be no sight distance issues. There'll be no issues with other intersections in the proximity, you know, safe access, pedestrian access, and other things. So a lot of that is, you know, what I see in here, and we can go through it. I mean, what was mentioned here is that, you know, RN2 is not consistent in the area, but we can see right there, there's RN5 directly adjacent to us. There's also, if you look to the northwest, there's about 150 acres of RN2 within about 300 feet of our parcel. So we would mention that, and then also using our access from Grayview, you can also see more RN5 to the east. And that would be the direction that we would actually access the parcel. So we would like to bring that up. It does mention that there was no substantial changes. Moreland Heights Elementary School, which is not directly adjacent, but a little further to the south, there has been changes there in 2015. It mentions that our RN1 lot standards, that we would have 22 single-family units, and it would be doubled to 45 units at RN2. That's actually incorrect. Our concept plan allows for 28 total units. So this is saying at RN1 we'd have 22. We're actually only trying to develop 28. So with the size of the site, with having the roads and the stormwater management, we can only physically fit 28 units. So that's how many units we would be looking to build. We talked further down about the site distance issue, which is not affected because of Martin Mill Pike. Frontage of the property would have to be 400-foot space from a existing intersection. That would not apply. It mentions if we access from Grayview Drive with more than 30 lots, we would have to have 2 points of ingress egress. but we're not asking for over 30, we're only asking for 28, so one entrance would suffice from Grayview. It mentions with the hillside protection that we would need to comply with 75.2% disturbance budget. So during our feasibility study that we conducted, we'd actually only have to disturb around 50% or less because we're using pre-manufactured homes that would actually be on piers. So that would drastically cut down the grading that's needed. So, I mean, it just, you know, we're asking for RN2, which is consistent with what's around us. We don't think that it's going to cause any adverse conditions for the existing residents. All the new residents would have the same access to all the public facilities that the current residents do. So we would kindly ask to be able to have 28 affordable homes in Knoxville.
Thank you for your comments. Commission? Commissioner Higgins.
Thank you. You know, looking at the map, I definitely think that it doesn't seem like much of a stretch for this to be RN2 with, you know, RN2 just across the street. As he mentioned, there's RN5 touching it on the rear. And one question for staff, the parcel behind this that has the C designation, I can't remember, I think that's from before recode, is that correct?
That's correct. That would indicate that there was a previously approved plan for that particular piece of property.
Is it possible that that plan may have a higher density than, or would that plan even be relevant anymore?
It wouldn't be relevant for this discussion because this, I mean, we're talking about this specific property. I don't know what that, we could look at that plan to see what that approved density was, but.
That's fine. I was just, I feel like it could make a lot of sense here, and I'm definitely looking forward to hearing other thoughts on it, but I don't know if I completely agree with staff on this.
Commissioner Midas.
Yeah, it looks like when staff did their analysis, they were assuming Martin Mill Pike was going to be the access point. It also, knowing that they're only intending 28 units on this piece of property, does that change the recommendation? Samuel?
I'd like to weigh in real quick here.
Yeah.
So we don't, I just want to make sure that you all, you're looking at whether or not this should be rezoned and not the concept that's before you. As you all know, as we just talked about in the last case, property can change hands. So just to caution you on that, I mean, be sure to look at the criteria for the rezoning in order to base your decision because, again, this applicant probably is intending to develop this property as they have presented to you all, but we don't review a concept plan for rezonings. So our recommendation is based off the criteria in front of you.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Director Brooks. And I guess, and I understand, you know, I agree with Commissioner Higgins. It does worry me, you know, that we would rezone this and, you know, the access to the Grayview is not there and they would have to access to Martin Mill. I think staff has it right, and I guess what I'm thinking right now, maybe, you know, denying this request.
Commissioner Adams.
This maybe is for Director Brooks, because I am being influenced to look at item 3 in Samuel's report that says that a potential alternative access may be possible through the extension of Gayview Drive. And so I'm reading here that it's saying this could be possible, but for a subdivision of over 30 houses, a secondary access would be required, which would call Martin Mill Pike into play. So it seems like this point is making it say that RN2 wouldn't work for that reason, even if you did use Gayview.
I think what staff's is pointing out there is that over a certain number of housing units would require secondary access. But I would, you know, that's what that is stating there.
Okay, so that is not really Well, okay.
So if it was rezoned RN2, they would have to come before with a concept, and they couldn't do over 30 lots without having 2 access points. Exactly. But the one on Martin Mill is not a safe access point. Is that right?
Joshua, would you like to comment on that? Mr. Freeze?
Could you repeat the question, please?
If you go, over 30 lots, you would need a second access?
Yes, it starts at 30 lots.
Okay.
And the one off Martin Mill does not seem safe. Is that right?
It is questionable whether there would be enough sight distance. It's possible there is, but that sight distance analysis has not been performed.
That road is very narrow too, isn't it?
It's fairly narrow, and there's some curvature immediately up and down road of the lot.
Commissioner Gill?
So since you're looking at Martin Mill there, I would encourage you to also drop the pin on Grayview, since this is quickly becoming contingent on access to this property. And we keep talking about how Grayview is an example of where we can alleviate that. But go drop it on Grayview, right where it connects to the property, for 30 houses. I just want to point out that the Martin Mill is insufficient for, based on what we've said, for safety, and yet it is a striped load. It's very much wide in comparison to Grayview. And we're looking at Grayview now, and there's a car parked on there, and you couldn't even pull around said car if you were trying to come down that road. So I think that using Grayview as another access would require improvements through that entire section. And that would be the same for Martin Mill. So density is probably a challenging, it'd be challenging to develop this with a lot of density, regardless of which access point we're going to use.
Mr. Messina, I'm going to ask you to be brief, but
Yes, sir.
I invite you to comment on that.
Yeah, so we have spoke to city engineering, and we would expand Grayview and make sure it conforms to all regulations of a current city road.
Commissioner Biggs?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of float the idea of, could we condition the RN2 on access to Grayview, which effectively caps development at 30 units?
In the city, you can't condition rezonings.
Okay, that answers my question.
Commissioner Midas?
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and pass a motion to deny the RN2 Single Family Residential Neighborhood District because it does not meet the criteria for a rezoning.
I'll second that.
We have a motion to deny per staff recommendation by Commissioner Midas, seconded by Commissioner Gill. Do we have any other lights? Commissioner Overton?
Isn't it, and this might be a question for staff, but isn't it true that if the site distance issue would prevent the density, that should they bring a concept plan or whatever it's called, the plot, that that site distance issue would prevent the permitting of that concept plan with too much density, and they would either have to get a variance or they would not be allowed to build that much density?
Mr. Freeze, you want to comment on that?
I would say that typically we don't relate site distance to density, but during the concept plan, it would have to be addressed, and it would either prevent access if there's not adequate site distance or require some other form of mitigation in the area, and that would be regardless of density.
So if they were using that, and I'm not fresh on this right now, but if they were using that, are we talking about using that as a second access?
I'm just
potentially?
talking about the access points, and since we're talking about the access points in general, I guess I'll jump to my thinking on this is that the surrounding area, as far as just the land in my mind, supports RN2 just because it's consistent. But when you boil it down to the roads is where we're starting to have a density issue because of road width or site distance and safety concerns and things like that. And so my thinking is that those constraints will if those constraints already exist, if we rezone it to RN2, the safety concerns will be addressed at the point that they bring the concept plan because they won't feasibly be able to do something that is unsafe because they won't get the
It would
permit
limit
for it.
it to under 30
Right.
if it required a second access.
Yes, so that's kind of where I'm at with this.
Okay, Vice Chair Huber.
Yeah, I would echo Commissioner Overton's thoughts. I mean, I think RN2 is acceptable in that area. It's a mixed bag. There's RN5, RN3, RN2, RN1. But the guardrails are in place, I think is kind of what you're saying. Even if we do recommend RN2, there's only going to be so much density because of the, external factors, how wide the road is, the access points, things like that. So I feel very comfortable. I've been through this process with the city, and they're very strict about those types of things, and they all get picked up on the concept plan. So the concept plan will come through, and they'll say you have to widen Grayview Road. You can only do this. If you come in with 31 units, they say you can't do that unless you're going to access Martin Mill. And then they look at that, and then they say, well, you can't do that, so you can't have any more than 30 anyway. So I think the guardrails are in place for that, and it is an appropriate use. RN2 is in that location.
Commissioner Gill.
So I think all of those things are probably true, Commissioner Huber. I don't disagree with you on that. I think we just came out of a situation when we've talked at length about a rezoning that took place where we assumed that guardrails would be in place. And rather than those guardrails being utilized, somebody came back and asked for us to remove a condition in order to satisfy a development. If we rezone this now and make this land RN2 and it changes hands from this developer and the next developer comes in and then comes back before our body and says, yeah, well, you made this RN2, you intended for this to be utilized in this manner because clearly you approved it. Now I need you to make these variances in order to make it work for me. And then we all say, oh, let's solve this problem, and so we solve that problem. I think that from a process perspective, if we don't intend for land to be utilized in a way that we don't want it to, we shouldn't rely on future, perhaps, guardrails to signify that. We just came through a situation when, as I said, we assumed that those guardrails would be in place, and we just erased those guardrails, and I was on that side for that very reason. So I want to be very careful when we say, hey, well, let's go ahead and rezone it now and make somebody potentially increase the value of their land, sell it, and have a potential future person coming to us saying, well, you made it clear that we can develop it, now make it possible for me to do so. If we don't want this to be developed, and we're all talking about how site distances and issues are in that place, then now is the time that we say, let's not develop it, instead of setting ourselves up for another conversation with a future commission of them trying to guess our intentions 3 or 4 years down the road.
Sure, and I totally understand where you're coming from because we did just discuss that on Ball Road. I guess my difference in between that one and this one is we're talking about subdivision regulations and what has been codified and passed and what the city of Knoxville will allow or not allow. It's not a matter of opinion or us removing. I mean, it's a safety issue, site distance, road width, those types of things, and they're very adamant. You can't waive all that stuff. I mean, either you can do it or you can't, and if you can't, you can't. So it doesn't matter if the zoning is there. If you don't have site distance, then there's an issue. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, because that hillside slope in the county is a little more gray than it is in the city. But in the county or in the city, the subdivision regulations out of the engineering departments are very clear. And I think they have to meet every bit of that, so.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion to deny and a second. We have a motion second to deny RN2. Seeing no other lights, all in favor to deny, say aye.
No.
Any opposed, say no.
No. No. Sorry.
Let's just do a roll call. Why not? Mr. DeArmond, call the roll.
Commissioner Huber?
No.
Commissioner Browning?
No.
Commissioner Levinson?
No.
Commissioner Barger? No. Commissioner Overton? Commissioner Anderson?
No.
Commissioner Higgins?
No.
Commissioner Biggs?
No.
Commissioner Daly? No. Commissioner Gill?
Yes.
Commissioner Midas?
Yes.
Commissioner Adams?
Yes.
Commissioner Hill?
No.
That's 11-3.
Chair will entertain another motion.
I make a
Oh,
motion.
and we'll need rationale for the motion, for the reason for rezoning. I didn't mean to spook anybody.
That's all right.
Commissioner Overton, your light is on.
Oh, well, Huber turned his light on with me, but I'll
No,
be
that's
brave.
all right.
Can
Go
I
right
make a
ahead.
motion to approve the RN2 zone because it's consistent with the surrounding land use? Is that good enough?
Yes, I will second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Overton to approve RN2 because it is consistent with the surrounding areas, seconded by Vice Chair Huber. Seeing no other lights, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Those three no's sound louder than they used to. I'm assuming three, is that right? 1, 2, 3, okay. 3 no's. Did you get those, Mr. DeArmond? Okay, thank you. All right,
Yeah, so 35.
okay.
Just making sure we don't need any more votes on that one.
All right. Agenda item 35, applicant Charles Corlew, east side of Sevierville Pike, north of Island Home Pike, 2.52 acres, present zoning RN1, zoning requested RN2, existing land use, rural, residential, agricultural, forestry, and vacant land. Staff recommendation, deny RN2 district because it does not meet the criteria for a rezoning. Is the applicant present?
I'm here, sir.
All right. Please state your name and address.
I'm Randy Corlew, 376 Lockmere Drive in Morristown, Tennessee.
All right. Do we have opposition? Any opposition? Okay, I see opposition. Do we have folks signed up here? Which one? 35. Let's see, Asher Freeman. Asher Freeman. I'm sorry? He is my neighbor. Okay. Oh, he's not here. Okay. All right. Did you want to speak? I would like to oppose. Okay.
There's other in the back, too.
Okay. How many people do we have that are wanting to speak? We don't need to speak. Okay. Okay. All right.
I think he just spoke.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, we'll let Mr. Corlew, did I pronounce that right? Or?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Corlew. You may proceed with your comments if you so choose.
Yes, sir. I was engaged to represent this piece of property because there was an easement that you see that has since been closed by the commission a few months back. And in doing so, it allowed an opportunity for them to put in a cul-de-sac with 15 units, 15 lots. But I was telling them that we would have to change the zoning to be able to even go to that point. Both the property owner and the one wanting development realizes that we can't go any farther. We've got a concept, it's a very simple cul-de-sac, and worked on site distance, but again, you can't put the cart before the horse, and the first thing is to try and see if we could get the rezoning. And listening to all the other comments you've had all day long, and I'm late to getting Sevierville right now for 120 unit, but this was why we wanted to present it and ask for the rezoning.
All right.
These units that'll be built there were planned to be about $455,000 a piece.
Okay. Commission. Commissioner Adams.
Yes, I'm just looking at the map and I'm seeing RN1, 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 RN1. I think staff got it right, and I'm going to make a motion to deny the RN2 based upon staff's recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Adams, seconded by Commissioner Midas, to deny RN2 per staff recommendation. Seeing no other lights, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Commissioner Hill, I'll be recusing myself for this next one.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item 36, applicant Hayo Design and Development, location east of Riverside Road between Brooks Avenue and Delrose Drive, 2.31 acres. Present plan designation and zoning is low-density residential, hillside protection, RN1 and hillside protection. Proposed plan, medium-density residential, hillside protection, RN2, hillside protection. Existing land use, rural residential. Staff recommendation. Okay, got it. Okay, so we are dealing with a rezoning here. Staff recommendation, and the proposed motion would be approve the RN2 district because it is compatible with surrounding development and supported by residential amenities in the area. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
If you'll state your name and address, please.
Savannah Reyes Dixon, 133 Southgate Street, Knoxville, 37902. I just kind of moved here, so I'm still memorizing addresses.
Thank you. Do we have any opposition? Seeing no opposition, would you like to comment?
Sure. It's a pretty basic rezoning to RN2 from RN1. We believe that it's falls in line with the surrounding areas. We've got some RN4, we've got some RN2s. It's between two major accesses on Brooks and Delrose. And it has, similar to what council or the commission said for staff, there's lots of public amenities. It's close to commercial and schools and churches, so.
Thank you. Commissioner Adams.
I have a question for the applicant, and we have, this is a new tool that we have in our packets, or where there's a box that it talks about community engagement, and the box is marked no. And I wondered, because there's also a box that says no, but I plan to.
I believe that it's the no, but I plan to. I think that was just a mistake on our part when filling that out.
Since we've not dealt with this before, I'm going to ask, so it's documented here that it's no, and there's no intention to talk to them. So do we just accept that?
There's no requirement.
There's no requirement?
No requirement.
Which, just an encouragement.
Right. Well, I'll ask one more question. Is there, so you said it was a mistake and that it would have been no, I plan to. My question is, like, has there been any engagement thus far?
So we have heard from a couple of different neighbors that have reached out to us. So we are the firm, I'm representing the firm that's representing the owner or the client. And so we have had a couple different neighbors reach out to us about their concerns, specifically about the width of Riverside Drive or Road. And so they've been open to discussing for sure. And so that's definitely something that we would encourage the owner to participate in going forward with the rezoning.
Commissioner Barger.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the RN2 as per staff recommendation because it's compatible with surrounding development and supported by residential amenities in the area.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Barger, seconded by Commissioner Levinson, to approve RN2 per staff recommendation. Seeing no other lights, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Somebody want to go retrieve Commissioner Higgins? Next is agenda item 40. Subdivision is 0 Broom Road. Applicant developer Homestead Land Holdings LLC. Location southeast quadrant of the intersection of Broom Road and Middlebrook Pike. Zoning, approximate acreage, 3.12 acres. Zoning is RN5, existing land use, single-family residential, agriculture, forestry, and vacant land. Proposed use, 28-lot townhouse subdivision, number of lots, 28. And this will require 3 motions, 2 variances, and a concept plan. Motion 1 will be variance 1, motion 2 will be variance 2, motion 3 will be a concept plan. And I'm sure Counselor Blakeney would like for me to read these, so I will accommodate. Motion 1 related to the variance, approve the requested variance to reduce the minimum intersection separation between center lines of Middlebrook Pike and Road A from 300 feet to 185.2 feet based on the following evidence of hardship. A, there's not sufficient depth or width to meet the required intersection separation along either of Middlebrook Pike or Broom Road. Access via Middlebrook Pike is not desirable here, as this is a median divided major arterial and would require a right-in, right-out access. Tennessee Department of Transportation would also prefer access via Broom Road. B, the shape of the property and its location with respect to the adjacent streets are unique to the property. Broom Road also has a crest on its winding portion to the south that further restricts the location of the proposed access road. The access needs to be closer to Middlebrook Pike to obtain the required sight distance looking to the south. C, approval of the variance is not anticipated to be detrimental to public safety, health, or welfare because there is no through connectivity that could generate high traffic volume. Left turn egress to Broom Road is restricted to reduce potential conflicts with oncoming traffic from the Blind Hill to the south. Motion 2 related to variance 2, approve the requested variance to reduce the minimum common area buffer strip depth required for double frontage lots between lots 18 through 28 and the Middlebrook Pike right-of-way from 25 feet to 10 feet based on the following evidence of hardship. A, the shallow depth of the property makes it challenging to meet the required 25-foot buffer yard. B, the shape is unique to the property. As stated by the applicant, there are also some topographical challenges on this property with a maximum elevation change of 29 feet from the southern property line to the Middlebrook Pike right-of-way. C, approval of variance is not anticipated to be detrimental to public safety, health, or welfare. The reduced buffer strip cannot be used for vehicular access to Middlebrook Pike since a retaining wall is proposed along the rear boundaries of lots 18 through 28 for topographical reasons. The City of Knoxville Engineering Department and TDOT have shared no safety concerns for the reduced depth or the retaining wall that is approximately 20 feet away from the nearest travel lane. Motion 3 related to concept plan. Approve the concept plan subject to the 7 noted conditions. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
If you'll state your name and address, please.
Sure. Thomas Krajewski, Homestead Land Holdings, 122 Perimeter Park Drive.
And do we have opposition? Okay, we do have opposition, and I will ask, let's see here, Mr. Anastasio, did I say that right? Come, would you like to proceed, the applicant, would you like to proceed or defer?
We'll defer.
Okay. If you'll educate me on the pronunciation of your last name, please.
We pronounce it Atanasio, A-T-T.
Atanasio.
Yes, but Atanasio is correct. There's no such thing in the long A in the Italian language, so.
All right.
Anyway, again, Ron Atanasio. I live at 812 Bennett Place. Bennett Place is the neighborhood adjacent to the property we're talking about here. Bennett Place is right there to, well, my right, as you see it going in. For the record, we have been working with this developer from the very beginning, from rezoning on. And in fact, they have changed the elevation of the retaining walls. They have put up additional barrier in terms of landscaping, and we appreciate them doing that. The reason we're here, though, is safety. What's happening is we are taking all of the traffic from these townhomes and exiting and entering on Broom Road, right there at Broom. And the real concern is the intersection at Broom and Middlebrook as we sit here today is a dangerous and difficult intersection. Traffic is coming from the left. If someone is turning left on the Middlebrook Pike, it's very difficult. Folks are coming up a steep hill, they're accelerating, and traffic backs up on on Broome Road because folks are trying to make that left-hand turn. What we're asking for today is basically a 30-day delay so we can speak with the developer, speak with the neighbor, and it's really the church, off to the side about widening right there on Middlebrook, widening it to the right, on Broome, adding an additional lane, because if cars are turning left into the townhome, cars are actually going to back up on Middlebrook Pike, and it's going to create a serious traffic hazard. So all we're asking for is an opportunity to, one, widen either on the side of the development or on the side of Broome Road where we can get in and make it safer for everyone, not just the folks at the townhome, but the folks in our neighborhood, in West Hills. I believe there was a submission, late submission, of a proposed widening. There it is. All we're really talking about on either side is potentially widening the road where if somebody is turning left into the townhomes, we don't back up traffic on Middlebrook Pike. In terms of the particulars, I'm going to now defer to my neighbor, Mr. Clarence Hill. Thank
Mr.
you.
Atanasio, isn't that a TDOT review?
No, I don't think so on Broome.
No, off of Middlebrook. You said it would
Middlebrook,
back up on, did I understand you say back up on Middlebrook?
No. Well, the cars will back up on Middlebrook from Broome Road. In other words, as people are making a right-hand turn from Middlebrook onto Broome Road, the cars are going to back up because someone's making a left-hand turn, which is the only way in and out of the townhomes.
But if that's a concern, I think that's a TDOT review, not a developer review. It would be typically, if there's a concern, TDOT would mandate something be improved on that state route. But I'll let you continue and.
Well, my thought is, though, we're talking about Middlebrook Pike, that's TDOT. And the whole reason for not going through Middlebrook Pike is a TDOT issue because it is a state road. Broome Road is not. And where we're talking about widening is Broome Road, not Middlebrook.
But the conflict you have is related to Middlebrook, backing up on Middlebrook, right?
Potentially backing up on Middlebrook and
Yeah.
also turning left from Broome Road onto Middlebrook.
Okay,
Because we're adding traffic going both ways.
got it.
Mr. Hill.
Mr. Hill?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Clarence Hill, 718 Broome Road. I'm a 30-plus year resident of Broome Road and a retired professional civil engineer familiar with the engineering principles that are protective of the public safety, health, and welfare that guide the engineering profession. I submitted some correspondence to you. I hope you've had an opportunity to look at that, submitted it this week. I urge you to postpone this item, and if not postponed, to vote against the first variance and the concept plan for the following reasons. Number one, the requested variance to reduce the minimum intersection separation from 300 to 185.2 feet is significant and merits additional evaluation. Number two, no substantive justification has been presented in the staff report that supports the conclusion that the configuration of Broome Road intersection with the proposed road is protected of public safety, health, and welfare. Number three, granting major exceptions to traffic safety standards without consideration of mitigation is ill-advised. Number four, no mitigations have been identified to address the increased safety risk due to the shortened distance between the intersections. Number five, Broome Road as we've heard, is a dangerous intersection, and there's been a history of traffic accidents. Number 6, postponement will provide an opportunity to adequately consider all the traffic safety issues that will be created by the proposed new road intersection. A decision to approve this request without mitigation may jeopardize the safety, health, and welfare of the residents of West Hills community and the growing number of other residents using Broom Road. You are urged to postpone this item, or if not postpone, vote against the first variance and the concept plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Mr. Lee Hume. Okay, choosing. We've got 13 seconds, but we can afford you another minute if you so choose.
13 seconds. Hi. My name is Lee Hume. I live at 6902 Haverhill Drive, Knoxville. I'm president of the West Hills Community Association. And we are concerned about the safety of this proposed intersection, mostly with its proximity to Middlebrook Pike and the request for the variance for a reduced line of sight permitted. And it's about a 40% reduction from a normal safety standard. I'm assuming that the safety standard, and I'm no expert on traffic, but with common sense, I have to say that I would think that a safety standard is established based on a long-term study of situations so that a 300-foot line of sight is considered safe for entering a roadway such as this is. To have it reduced by 40% and knowing that traffic coming from Middlebrook is going at a high rate of speed and that it is a challenge right now if you try to go out of this intersection and go onto Middlebrook, either to the right or to the left. And then it's equally a challenge for people who are turning left from Middlebrook onto Broome if you're westbound because you have traffic coming. Nobody's really obeying the speed limit. Cars probably going at 50, 55 miles an hour through there. And people do take chances, and we've all seen situations like that. We think that because of the existing situation and with this new intersection being so close to that existing intersection, that there's a real risk that with a single lane of traffic coming from Middlebrook onto Broome Road and people trying to turn left into the new subdivision and the townhouses, that can create an opportunity, sadly, for accidents that could happen with people being rear-ended because it's a blind turn coming from Middlebrook into Broome. And so there is a real possibility, without something being done to mitigate the reduced line of sight distance by 40%, if something isn't done to offset that to preserve safety, that's our big concern. And it'll affect the residents of West Hills, prospective residents that would be in the townhouse, and then people that are just doing normal traffic through that area. So with that in mind, that's our big objection and a real concern of the neighbors.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you for your
Hume.
time.
And I'll give the applicant 90 additional seconds if needed.
Thank you, Commission. This project is a project inside the city of Knoxville. It's an infill housing project to provide townhomes in the West Hills community. It's a very desirable community. It's got the infrastructure, it's got the parks, it's got the schools, and it's got walkability. Really has all the things that I think a resident of Knoxville would like to see. And we've been working with West Hills on this for many, many months. We applied for rezoning back in February. We met initially with West Hills. At that time, explained the rezoning, the interest to build 24 to 28 townhome units, and really stayed on that. Since then, we've had a total of 5 meetings, both with the West Hills HOA as well as Millington Park, which is across the street from this site on the other side of Middlebrook, and have had a lot of good constructive conversation about our interest to build townhomes here now for about 8 months. We have a civil engineer working on this project. We also have a traffic engineer working on this project, and we have a second opinion from another civil engineer that does a lot of work with our group. So we have a lot of information regarding engineering, traffic, and safety specifically a traffic study. So I wanted to tee up just a little bit of backstory about this project, our engagement with the community, our engagement with engineering, and turn it over to our civil engineer to speak to specifics.
Chris Sharp, 10330 Hardin Valley. Like Thomas said, they had Ajax Engineering did a traffic/speed study, and in his summary of recommendations, it shows the intersection location, the proposed intersection location, essentially right where we have it. And reason being because to the south there's a very severe crest vertical curve, and our proposed location allows sight distance from that curve where people are driving much faster than they are turning right off, turning off of Middlebrook. It's almost a quasi stop condition. So with that, I'll answer any questions if you have them.
All right.
Commission, I'll just add one more item. Here, after a meeting with the neighborhood on September 26th, just after that meeting, a day or two later, it was proposed that this additional left turn lane into the neighborhood be considered. I reached out to our traffic engineer, even though that was not an initial recommendation from them, to see what their thoughts were on that. He provided me with some information regarding left turn lane warrants, so the standards by which you would want to add a left turn lane, and explained that the peak traffic coming up Broom Road, turning left would be four cars per hour in the morning and up to 14 cars in the peak hour in the afternoon. The left turn lane warrant is 300 turns, so it's quite a big deviation from where this project or what this project would create, because this is a dead-end road with 27 townhome units, not a through street or a connection or anything like that. So I did just want to add that I had that follow-up with our traffic engineer regarding the neighborhood's interest to explore left turn lane. Outside of that, I did support the neighborhood in safety. Safety is important for our residents, as it is any resident. And pulling out of the community meeting that we had just south of here at Parkview, I did notice that Broom Road was pretty dark, that the streetlights were dark. So I told the community that I'd be happy to reach out to the city to see if we can add some streetlights in that area. I also think that any kind of entrance feature might add a little bit of lighting there and a little bit of presence. So we're willing to work on safety. We're willing to work on enhancing the community. But we rely on engineers to give us the firm direction on what is right to do or required to do. And so we will continue to do that, but we will continue to work in good faith with West Hills to try to help make this as safe a road as we can.
Thank you. Commission? Commissioner Adams.
There was a comment on the public comments area, and I came in very recently, but it was about, I think it was from a neighbor who was saying that they had had some successful conversations with the applicant. So I guess I'm kind of wondering if the request from the neighborhood is for a 30-day postponement, to work some of these things out. Sounds like you've started having some productive dialogue. Would that be helpful? I mean, I guess I'm curious about the applicant's feelings on that.
Sure. Like I said, we started working on this project back in February. So we're coming up on 8 months now to try to get to the point where we can start construction documents to actually get to the point where we can have permits in the next 3 or 4 months and then actually start a project. It's been an extremely lengthy process, and that included us agreeing to a 30-day postponement for the rezoning so that we can engage the community. And we have had the same dialogue with the community now for 8 months. We continue to have that dialogue. We've been speaking today, and we'll continue to have that dialogue moving forward. But at this point, to delay the approval of a concept to trigger our next step is not something that we can afford to do. Our sellers have been patient with us working through this project and this process. I feel like we've had really good success and good strides, and I feel like we have the data to support this concept plan from our engineers. And so, again, we'll continue to move forward, but at this point, we request that there not be a postponement.
Commissioner Higgins.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the engineer what on the plan, there's like a common area. What is, it's almost like a stub out or something.
The one to the left,
Right, where the mouse is,
oh, that's a group mail facility,
I'm sorry?
a group mail.
Oh, group mail, okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Midas.
Yeah, this question might be for engineering. I appreciate all of the dialogue that you've had with the West Hills Neighborhood Association. It's great. It seems there was some issue about their concern on backing up onto Middlebrook. I don't know if you could address that. I don't know if like a sign saying not to block that intersection there so traffic could get in might even be a good solution for that.
Traffic markings are recommended as part of the traffic study. I didn't draw them on the plan, but yeah, basically something to keep the entrance open is going to be constructed.
Okay, and I know you said there was on average 4 people at that intersection exiting per hour? Is that what you said?
In the morning, it would be 4 people turning left into the subdivision. And then the afternoon it was 14. So that's expected to be higher in the afternoon with people getting off work. So.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Biggs.
I think that I think that answers my question. I was just curious, like, what solutions there could be to traffic issues, like, should they emerge? But it sounds like they're kind of premeditated at this point, so.
Commissioner, thank you. Commissioner Barger.
I want to make a motion to approve the requested variance to reduce the minimum intersection separation between the center lines of Middlebrook Pike and Road A from 300 to 185.2 feet based on the evidence of hardships on A, B, and C. Do I have to read those?
No, you do not,
Thank you.
because I've already read them.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Barger, seconded by Commissioner Anderson, to approve motion 1 related to variance 1 per staff recommendation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I want to make a motion to approve the requested variance to reduce the minimum common area buffer strip depth required for, it might help if I put my glasses on, required for double frontage lots between lots 18 and 28 and Middlebrook Pike right-of-way from 25 feet to 10 feet based on the evidence of hardship listed.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Barger, seconded by Commissioner Anderson, to approve motion 2, variance 2, per staff recommendation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Make a motion to approve the concept plans subject to 7 conditions.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Barger to approve the concept plan subject to the 7 noted conditions, and that was seconded by Commissioner Anderson. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is agenda item 41. Subdivisions Fox and Fogarty on Yosemite Drive. Applicant developer David Shaban. Location, eastern terminus of Yosemite Trail and northern terminus of Farland Drive. Zoning, RN1, single-family residential, and hillside protection. Existing land use, agriculture, forestry, and vacant land. Proposed use, single-family lots. Number of lots, 21. This, what, oh, it is 22? We've got 2 different staff reports. Is it 21 or 22?
It's 21 buildable lots.
21, okay. So number of lots, 21. Right over here, right there. Okay, all right, here we go. Staff recommendation, let's see, it looks like there is okay. Staff recommendation is to approve the concept plan subject to the 10 noted conditions. Is the applicant present?
9.
I just read the report, I don't draft it, so it says 10 here in mine, so I think we have two different reports. So how many,
Ms. Warner, we have 10, correct?
Yes, 10.
Yes.
21 lots.
I've got 10.
What is, yours is
The revised one. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I'm pulling mine from the web, not from. But I'm saying that when I'm looking at the agenda, and when I click on the agenda, it opens up this plan. So that seems like a natural way to navigate to this.
Okay, well,
It did send me astray, and I'm concerned just because of the public component
Sure.
of it.
Sure, well, I've got 10 listed here, and if we need to go through each one of them, we can, and you can tell me if you don't need one of them, if that's what we need to.
okay.
Could we get the applicant up to the podium?
I will just state that we do have there is a button on our website that says any changes, and so you have to click on that. We can work out this, but it has been posted to the website, the revised staff report.
So I'm gonna ask staff first. How many conditions does the staff recommend? 10, okay. So I've got the 10 noted here. All right. Everybody good with that? I'll go ahead and read them. If some of you only have 9, then I guess I need to read. Tell me what I need to do, Counselor.
Well, I'd like to put on the record how the staff report, the revised staff report was put on the website and the notice provided. But can you just articulate that to me? Because in light of the circumstances, I want to make sure that's clear. Yes, that's fine, but I'm talking about even before that, I'd like a statement on the record here now about this report having been available and when and on the website because of the circumstances.
Sure.
I don't know the exact time. September 27th is what
Is what it stated.
is what is stated, what the staff report stated.
So you should put that on the record.
The staff report, the date of this particular report is 9/27/2024, and it was posted to our website under revised. I don't have our website pulled up. Is there something else?
Was it posted to the website on that date?
Ms. Warner, can you clarify when it was posted to the website?
I'm trying to find a message that I would have sent to Dallas.
I'll just state that we do revise our staff reports, and on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you will get a revised notification to all the planning commissioners, and we try to keep our website updated. And we can clarify which of the conditions was revised.
I think Ms. Warner is prepared to speak.
Yes, this was put in the Tuesday blue sheet folder, so this went up Tuesday.
This went out on Tuesday,
Yes,
is that correct?
with the 10
Okay.
conditions, Tuesday.
With the 10th condition.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. So that's that. Okay. Have we asked the applicant to come up? Okay, Counselor. Do we have any opposition? We do have opposition. Would you like to proceed or defer?
Just briefly, and then I'll reserve the remainder of my time. Ben Mullins, 550 West Main Street, here for the applicant. This was postponed from last month to give the applicant a chance to meet with the neighbors. They did that. They revised their site plan and to terminate the connectivity between the two neighborhoods into basically extending Farland and Yosemite into dead-end streets instead of having them connect between the two neighborhoods. That was the primary priority that we understood from the neighborhood. Since then, there's been some additional conversations. And from the opposition behind me, I don't think that we're all in agreement as to what they are asking us to do. However, we do believe that this concept plan meets the subdivision regulations, and we'd ask for approval per staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Counselor Sanders?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Daniel Sanders, 920 Volunteer Landing, Suite 200, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37915. Here on behalf of the Timber Crest and Farview neighborhoods to express opposition to the current proposal. And if you're here from either one of those neighborhoods, please stand up and be recognized by the commission. Thank you. It's late in the day, and these folks have been good soldiers, and they've been here the whole time. There have been some people that have had to leave, but I want to begin by emphasizing that these communities are not opposed to development. They understand the need for growth and the benefits it can bring. What they are asking for is a development that respects the character of their neighborhoods and addresses the very real concerns that they've raised with the developer. Over the past few weeks, we have made several efforts to engage in good faith discussions, as Mr. Mullins has indicated.
Counselor Sanders, I'm going to ask you, I see some folks out there bending their ears, so if you could get a little closer to the microphone.
Apologize.
Or raise the
This thing
podium, either
doesn't
one.
really, I guess it does adjust.
There we go.
I'm not usually the tall person. Over the past few weeks, we've made several efforts to engage with the developer. The goal has always been to find a solution that benefits both the community and the developer. Unfortunately, the responses we've received don't reflect serious commitments to addressing the key concerns that we've raised, and there are three primary areas where we believe this proposal falls short. First, tree management and environmental impact. The preservation of existing tree canopy is not just an aesthetic issue for the neighborhood. These trees provide a critical environmental benefit, reducing stormwater runoff, improving air quality, and maintaining character and privacy of the area. While the developer has expressed a willingness to work with the community, there's been no firm commitment to retain trees of any significant size or to or number or establish meaningful buffer zones. So many of these concerns have been expressed and raised in public comments. Stephen Smith, for example, has raised concerns about the environmental risks of removing trees in an area prone to soil slippage, and we know this area has soils prone to that. He notes that the tree canopy helps stabilize the soil and prevent soil erosion. His concerns echo those of the community who fear that without a solid tree management plan, we risk not only losing natural beauty, but also increasing the likelihood of dangerous erosion. Second, the retention pond. The location of the retention pond is currently poses both environmental risks and safety risks for the community. It's too close to the Timber Crest pool, and that's the bottom line, it's too close to the pool. And we believe there are better options that haven't been fully explored. While the developer has agreed to a buffer, we remain concerned that it's not enough to mitigate potential impacts. And Dane Wright is also here with us today. He represents the Timber Crest Recreational Club. He outlines specific risks posed by the pond's proximity to the pool, including increased flooding, the creation of mosquito breeding grounds, and safety risks to the children. Mr. Wright also pointed out that soil slippage poses a significant threat to the pool property, making the current design acceptable to many residents. Third, distribution of the houses. And this is a unique one. I don't get this long time. These communities are working together, and we have 4 houses that will enter into one subdivision, and the rest of them will be dumped onto Farview. And so they would ask the commission to do a little bit of work here and come up with a more equitable distribution of houses and traffic through those subdivisions. Both the Hillside and Ridgetop Protection Plan and the Knoxville Urban Forest Management Plan are stated priorities for the city. These plans emphasize the importance of environmental protection, sustainable development, community well-being. As commissioners, you have the power to align this project with those priorities. This isn't just about compliance. It's about ensuring that the development fits within Knoxville's broader responsible growth. And so by doing that and maybe providing for another 30 days, we believe that this commission can send a message, essentially, that Knoxville, these communities are not bare minimum communities, bare minimum neighborhoods, and Knoxville's not a bare minimum town. So we respectfully urge the Planning Commission to defer approval or consideration of this plan until meaningful steps are taken to protect the tree canopy, address the concerns about the retention pond, and ensure a fair distribution of lots. We're not asking for anything unreasonable. We simply want a plan that reflects the values of the community as stated in the goals of the city. So in conclusion, we would ask that we've shown a willingness to work. We've not had any additional commitments. For that reason, we've been forced to continue our opposition to this project, and we do believe there's a path forward that benefits both sides, and we hope that Planning Commission will stand with us in facilitating further discussions, and hopefully we can reach that solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sanders and I need to switch color ties. I did not get the memo that green was the color of the opposition, or I would have worn a different color today. This is essentially an infill development of about 13 acres. There's a hillside protection budget of 9.18. We are meeting all the requirements of the hillside protection. That is one of the conditions. These lot sizes, this is our RN1 zone, same zoning in the surrounding neighborhood. They require a minimum of 10,000 square foot lot sizes. Our lot sizes are between 10,400 and 35,000. The density here, even though RN1 would allow up to 4.3 units an acre, the effective density with these 21 lots is 1.6 dwelling units an acre, which is very much in line with both communities to the east and the west. And Mr. Sanders uses the term that we're meeting the minimum subdivision requirements almost pejoratively. As the case law tells us, that planning commissions, when they're exercising their discretion in applying the subdivision regulations, they have to do so within existing standards and guidelines. It's the Hudson versus Metro Government Nashville-Davidson case. And that's interesting because that case goes on to say that nothing in the statute which enables the Planning Commission to have subdivision regulations and authorize them allows the Planning Commission to evaluate each subdivision request to determine whether it's harmonious. We're not looking at the aesthetic considerations. We're looking at whether we meet the guidelines themselves. And here we exceed them. This was postponed last week because the primary consideration was to not connect the two neighborhoods, which we did that. Now, in doing that, the site constraints of this property, there is hillside, it kind of goes up and down, there's a gas easement, and so the site really limits where the homes can go. If they were connected, there might be more of an opportunity to balance them out, but where we, and Mr. Harbin's the engineer, he can speak to this a lot better than I can. But where we have separated them, this is where the site will allow the homes to be situated. Same thing with the detention ponds. The water runs downhill. We have to put the detention ponds on the lowest end of the property. But there is a 25-foot non-disturbance. That's area adjacent to the detention pond next to the pool. And so that, we won't be disturbing that area at all. We have agreed, they do have an arborist. We've agreed that, through the permitting, we will be glad to talk to the arborist to see what trees can be maintained. As every developer will tell you, and as you know, you want to maintain as many trees as you can on an existing piece of property. You don't want to take things down if you don't have to. But there's going to have to be, in order to meet the subdivision regulations, or to meet the stormwater regulations, there's going to be grading that things do, vegetation does get removed. But we'll work with them on maintaining as much of that as we can, and we've communicated that with them. There's been quite a bit of conversation between the developer and the neighborhood. I just got involved in this last week. I was retained on September 27 when this revised report came out, not long after Mr. Sanders was retained. So both of us are coming to this fairly new, and unfortunately sometimes I think attorneys may complicate things. This is on the record, correct? So I don't think a postponement, is necessarily going to be beneficial, but we'll continue, the conditions that are in place that staff has put on really capture kind of the considerations that they have with regard to the subdivision report. Now, I will, say one thing. There was some, and Mr. Harvin, I wanted to make sure that the communications Mr. Sanders and I had back and forth do get into the record, because there was some implication that if we didn't agree to these conditions, there could be further legal action. And I asked, I said, well, I understand what your concerns are, but can you at least tell me what the concerns regarding meeting the subdivision regulations are, so we can make sure that those are addressed and are met? And that hasn't been answered yet. And so, I don't know if he has to bring that up at this point, or if it can be brought up at a lawsuit or not. I know there's some different opinions on that, but I would ask if they do think that this does not meet the subdivision regulations, that be identified, so staff and engineering can at least have a chance to comment on that. But I do believe this does meet the subdivision regulations. I don't believe meeting the legislative priorities that we've adopted, whether that's minimum or not, it should be used as a pejorative comment, and I'd ask that you approve per staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Commission? Commissioner Adams.
I want to ask a question, but I also want to look at the packet that was handed out. But my question is actually for Mr. Harvin. Can you speak to here's where I'm coming from. We got comments. We got comments from the public about the placement of houses. I'm paraphrasing here, but there was frustration with one side getting more houses than the other side. And we heard counsel who's representing opposition also refer to that. Can you talk about the placement of houses from the plan and why they are placed where they are?
I think what the opposition is asking for is that each neighborhood share equally in the amount of houses that are coming out that we're building. It's just not possible with the alignment here and the horizontal alignment to put the houses to come off equally on both sides. That's a big steep hill coming through there. I've got a gas line going through it. So I only want to cross that gas line one time. I don't want to cross it twice. And to put two roads over there to equally distribute the lots is just not a very feasible thing. We don't want to build more roads. We want to build as small roads as we can.
So this is a question. Are you saying that in addition to the gas line, that by not equally distributing the houses, there is some preservation of ridgeside and trees taking place, or is that an assumption on my part?
No, that's a good assumption on your part. Definitely, we won't be removing nearly as many trees and stuff like that.
Okay.
So the impact to the neighborhood would be a lot less with the layout we have now.
Okay, thank you. I also wanted to ask opposition, just to give you a chance to respond to that, because I really did want to understand from an engineering standpoint why the placement might be as it is, because it's been through some iterations, but also give you a chance to respond.
Yeah, the issue for us was the distribution of the houses. We think there may be an engineering solution to that. Our issue is the distribution of the houses. We believe there's an engineering solution to that, but it's this developer who's hiring an engineer to, make this project come to fruition. In my experience, engineers see a problem and they get to a solution. I think the problem for this developer is that they don't want to do one thing or the other. The issue for us was the distribution of houses. The gas line's not an issue for us.
Commissioner Higgins.
I kind of agree with the neighborhoods that, about the balancing out the access. So what I would really think would be a good idea here would be connecting those two stub outs and splitting the access evenly between them. So I don't think I saw that plan, but
I think that was part of the negotiation with the neighborhood not to do that. Isn't that right?
The first plan that moved forward and why it was postponed did have those connected, and they asked us to disconnect them. In disconnecting them, this is the best engineering plan that we had.
I picked up on that, but my point is, I think that if the concern is the even split of the traffic and the neighborhoods, I think that connecting is a good solution. And initially looking at this, that would have been my first thought anyways. That was my first thought, was why don't we just connect these? So I think that I wish we were looking at that version of the plan, because that would be much better than this one. So I think, I would be very in support of giving the neighborhood that and connecting those so that they evenly share the load with these.
Commissioner Biggs.
I just had a question regarding I had a question regarding the location of the detention pond. Definitely understand you have to work with gravity and topography and put it at a low point on the property. Is there any opportunity to move it kind of further, I guess, up in the way the picture is, like so it's still on a low portion of the slope, maybe not the lowest? I don't know if regulations require that it be at the, ultimate lowest point on a slope.
The way we've shown it right there is the best place for it. We've given a 25-foot buffer between them and the pool already. And so, it needs to be that low. I've got the ditch coming from behind the houses there to direct that into the pond, everything that's being built there. So I feel like that's the best place for the pond right there, and I don't think I'll have any impact on the pool or anything else out there too. So that's the best place for the pond.
Okay, thanks for the explanation.
Commissioner Overton.
Yeah, thank you. I think given that this body's role is to construe the plan in the context of the subdivision regulations and in looking at the communications, as of yesterday, the opposition has not identified a subdivision regulation that they feel has been violated, and they're, in my opinion, threatening to only start looking at the subdivision regulations when they don't get their way on things that are outside the purview of this body and what we're talking about. So given that the concept plan is in line with the subdivision regulations, and we have reviewed it extensively in consideration of prior opposition, this is a meet in the middle, and I would like to make a motion to approve the concept plan subject to the 10 conditions listed in staff's reports.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Overton to approve the concept plan subject to the 10 noted conditions, and that was seconded by Commissioner Anderson. Seeing no other lights, all in favor say aye.
I think we have to do the alternative design standards on this too. I think that's.
I was thinking the same thing, but that's an engineering only. I'm over here.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry, yes. I was thinking the exact same thing, but yes, it's an engineering approval.
I didn't mean to interrupt, especially when you guys are voting in my favor. I just want to make sure we did it correctly.
You didn't mean to?
Well, I wanted to make sure we did it correctly. I just wanted to, so thank you.
Okay. All right. So I think I heard a choir of ayes. Do we have any nays? Any nays? So, motion passes unanimously. Agenda item 44. Applicant is William Carithers, northeast corner of the intersection of Sevier Avenue and Trotter Avenue. Size of tract, 7,228 square feet. Zoning is neighborhood commercial. Existing land use, commercial. Proposed use, eating and drinking establishment. Staff recommendation, approve the request for an eating and drinking establishment in the neighborhood commercial district, subject to the 3 noted conditions. Is the applicant present?
Yes, I am.
All right. If you'll state your name and address, please.
William Carithers, and it's 5208 Catalina Road, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37918.
All right. Do we have opposition? Seeing no opposition, would you like to continue comments?
I just defer to the staff's comments.
All right. Commission? Okay, Commissioner Barter.
I make a motion to approve the request for an eating and drinking establishment in the CN Neighborhood Commercial District, subject to the 3 listed conditions.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the request for an eating and drinking establishment in the neighborhood commercial per staff recommendation by Commissioner Barger, and that was seconded by Commissioner Daly. Seeing no other lights, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all very much.
45. Is that, is 45
I don't think so.
Is 45, is Bentley Marlowe here?
Yeah. Agenda item 45. Staff recommendation, the motion required and staff recommendation is staff recommends denial of the proposed amendments to the City of Knoxville zoning code, Article 4.6, because they create contradictions and inconsistencies with existing definitions and other sections of the zoning code, and because they are not aligned with the established intent of the middle housing standards. Ms. Crockett, would you like to add anything to this report?
Not at this time. I spoke at agenda review, and I'm available to answer questions.
Okay. And we have the applicant before us. If you'll state your name and address.
R. Bentley Marlowe, 322 Douglas Avenue, 37921.
Okay. Would you like to proceed with your comments?
Sure. So, missing middle housing, this started last year. I put together a first draft, and then I revised it in a second, a third, and a fourth, and then I tabled it. And I had to untable it when I did, otherwise it would go away, and I'd lose my fee. Is this the best version? Probably not. For the last month or so, I've made numerous inquiries with planning staff wanting to discuss with them ways we could improve this, and they have not taken me up on the offers to discuss. We have, in the meantime, I have gotten approved 2 of the first missing middle housing applications, which roughly is about 20% of all of the approved projects. 2 of them are mine. If you count Parker's, we're over 25% of all approved projects. So I think we're working in this space. We're probably very knowledgeable in this space. I've proposed multiple iterations of zoning amendments dealing with this. I just think that it might be wise to include those of us that are actually doing missing middle housing and have been doing missing middle housing for years before the city took it up by doing developments through multitudes of BZA stuff and things that we're supposed to be making simpler. We might have some input and guidance that could contribute to this to get us to a better ordinance. And so I really would like to think that maybe we could postpone if planning staff would have some willingness to meet with us. But some discussion needs to be had. We've done this. We've been here before with rezonings. We've done it before BZA. We've appealed decisions and had to go to city council. And there's overwhelmingly a desire to have some discussion by council and BZA, and we've had discussion here on some rezonings on how it would apply to missing middle. And I think there's a better way. But that's going to require like some meetings to talk about our concerns as builders who are participating in this space and planning's concerns to know what their concerns are so that we could maybe find a happy middle ground where everybody views the projects as winning. And to that extent, that's what I'm sitting here trying to do. We've had just recently got a 6-month status report on missing middle, and every one of the issues, projects that became an issue of possible unintended consequences that were itemized, I believe are my projects. And I think maybe if we all just sat down in a room, we might be able to work out some of the misunderstandings, the fears, the confusion, and I just had to untable this or it would be lost. I would like to see a much better version of missing middle that would address everybody's concerns, because I think there are several unintended consequences that will follow out of this that will drastically alter our city. The biggest thing I don't want is I don't want to see tall skinnies. I don't want to see existing homes torn down and tall skinnies built all over, like in Nashville. And the way it's being currently implemented and interpreted is heading us down that path. And I'm somewhat scared as somebody who lives and works and has lived and worked in a TDR neighborhood for over 20 years. I'll yield the rest of my time to Parker.
Thank you. Parker Bartholomew, 5406 Summit Ridge Lane, 37921. I've prepared some individual responses to each of the staff comments that is on page 3 of the staff report. For the sake of time, I'm going to hit on the highlights, and I'm willing to answer any questions if you guys want to go into detail. Missing middle housing types, number 1, carriage houses is single-family homes. That's what it means. This was an attempt to provide some guardrails on single-family housing options, which I think, and what we've heard from council and up here and also at BZA, single-family homes need to have a way to be allowed in missing middle. Missing middle houses uses, these are items number 1 and 2. So far, there's been 3 trips to BZA to deal with this exact item. At each of those 3 trips to BZA, they passed 3-3 unanimously. Missing middle uses item number 3. We discussed this with plans review, and there's no conflict with fire separations. It's per email from Jim Tente, and I can go into more detail, but again, I got a little bit of time here. Missing middle item number 4, in base zoning RN1 and RN2, accessory structures are allowed, and multiple accessory structures are allowed, anywhere from 750 to 1,100 square feet. The only difference is we don't allow people to live in them. And I think we need to think about that. In these zones, you can build multiple accessory structures, but we do not allow them to be lived in. So when we're talking about character of neighborhoods, what we're really talking about is people living in these buildings, not if the buildings can be built. Item number 5, by right, we have a 4-plex in missing middle zones up to RN2 and above. Fundamentally, 2 duplexes or 4 tiny homes can provide the housing, but at a price point that's more affordable, can be sold to promote homeownership, and is a better fit in the neighborhood. May I have just a few more minutes? Thank you. Missing middle housing conversion standards, item number 1, as staff mentions, addition to the front facades is allowed in base zoning. Why would we require a building permit to the facade and then have to come back for another building permit for missing middle? We need to allow this at one time, and it just, again, this saves cost and it simplifies the process. I think other than that, most of it's editorial, so we'll let you go to have any questions. I know it's been a long night.
Thank you, Mr. Bartholomew. Commission. Commissioner Adams.
I feel like it's just my job to be the first person to talk.
I should just say Commissioner Adams.
Yeah. I, first of all, want to say that at agenda review, we got a very detailed analysis of this particular item, and felt like, I personally felt like Ms. Crockett did an exceptional job in terms of going through each of the points in this and providing that analysis. One of the things that stuck with me in that analysis was that one of the problems, and I think this is also part of what the applicant is saying, is that this is kind of something that's coming from a very specific view, it's addressing a specific thing, and it's not looking at the holistic nature of missing middle housing. And that is what planning and the city did, and now we're at the 6-month point. So we've gotten a report that has told us, here's how we're doing, but we have 6 months more to go to be able to figure out what's the real impact here. The applicant has said the only reason that we're talking about this right now is because he had to take it off the table or he'd lose his fee. So I don't feel like that is necessarily the most compelling reason to start working on this. I applaud staff for providing the report when they did, so we actually can see some progress there. I'm glad that some of those projects are yours. But I don't think that those things say, stop everything, now work on these specific things, because it's really looking at stuff in a granular way as opposed to how it affects everything. So for that reason, I can't support this. I feel like we should deny this if it has to come back to us right now so that you don't lose your fee. But I absolutely want this body and you and other developers to talk about this at year's end to really see what changes we do need to make at that point.
Commissioner Gill.
Yes, thank you. I just have a couple of comments. I unfortunately had to miss agenda review, so I apologize if some of this stuff was covered in agenda review. I just want to make a few comments. I think the first of which, and I think the most important to me in this regard, is that I've been harping a little bit on process this today, and I think that I'm working these things out as I go through them, but I object to the fact that we're even hearing something that's coming from a single developer about a very consequential plan that's being brought with red line edits for something that went through public process, that went through extensive vetting with city council, and went through a lot of public hearing and planning, and we're not even 6 months in, and a single developer who hadn't even gotten a single approval done on that has now brought us something to say, oh, I don't like how the plan turned out. There were a lot of people who had public input on that, and a lot of time was spent to try to come up with a plan that was amenable for everybody in the city, with the understanding that if there were changes that were going to need to be made, that would be done through the planning process as it normally goes. And so we have a single person, and no offense, Mr. Marlowe, I do really appreciate the work that you do, but I just don't understand why we're even hearing this when this is something that needed to go through council and commission and through planning in the normal way. That being said, middle housing is an incredibly important thing, and it's something that really animates me, and I'm very happy to be on this body just because of middle housing. To address a couple of things, we keep hearing about how single-family housing isn't allowed in middle housing. Definitionally, single-family housing is not middle housing. That is a definition of what middle housing is. Middle housing is intended to be those fourplexes and those larger middle housing that allows for more than one family to be on there. The intention of not including single-family homes on there was a key part of how this was written. We didn't intend for that to be the case when it was written, and to try to then use that as justification to allow that kind of flexibility in the back end wasn't the point of middle housing. We already have that. If you want to have a single-family house, there's zoning all over the city that has that available to you. I feel like that this is a solution in the search of a problem. We've not had, 6 months to see how this is going, and if I remember correctly, Mr. Marlowe, you have 2 housing permits that have been granted, and of those, you've come before this body to have several of them rezoned to get around the regulations that we're even talking about right now to get the project as you want to see done across council. There was lively conversation about that fact at council. I feel like you haven't given the opportunity for the middle housing regulations as written to work. I understand that Mechanicsville, where you particularly work in, is a challenging neighborhood, particularly on those small lots of record, and that some of these considerations are directly because of the housing types that you're dealing with specifically, but Mechanicsville isn't the whole of the city, and this regulation has to work for the whole of the city. I think that we are not at a point yet that we can definitively say that the challenges that have been identified in there are ones that we need to completely rewrite a regulation or provide any kind of updates when we haven't even seen them work, and none of your projects have actually been finished that were underneath those middle housing regulations. The entire intent of these regulations was to make it possible for people to do fourplexes by right or be able to do things by right, so we don't have neighborhoods sitting in here using zoning as a way to prevent housing being put in place and allowing density. The entire intent was to not have these zoning conversations and to allow by right. So then to come up and say, hey, what we're gonna get is a bunch of fourplexes in these neighborhoods, it's like, yeah, that was the point. So to then say that we need to look at them to allow different layouts, that might be the case, but we're not there yet. So it's for those reasons that I'm in opposition to the changes as proposed.
Thank you, Commissioner Gill. Commissioner Midas.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Gill. You've had a lot of experience with this. I appreciate your input on that. I agree. Lindsay, you did a wonderful job with your presentation on Tuesday. And one thing that I took out of that is that, this is just going to allow more density in lots that are already non-conforming and somewhat have been a struggle to develop, which I don't support, and I'll be in favor of denial for this. The only thing I will add is, this has created a lot of work for staff. The amendments that Mr. Marlowe has presented. And myself, I personally worked to present an amendment before council or before planning commission. This was years ago. And I worked with my city council member on that. And it was successful. I had the support of my city council member, went before planning staff. They were in agreement with the amendment, and it was a very smooth process. And I would encourage you to do that in the future.
Thank you, Commissioner Midas. Vice Chair Huber.
Yeah, I'd like to echo, I think Lindsay did a great job with the report, and I appreciate you guys too. I mean, Mr. Bartholomew and Marlowe, I mean, it is important to have input from people who actually do this out there. But, that said, I do think it's too early. We've only been in here for 6 months with the new plan, just finally getting a little bit of information for it. I would suggest, I think that's a great idea, maybe getting with the city council person in that area and starting from that direction, one. But two, if not, maybe pick it back up in 7 or 8 months from now. Let a year get under the belt, really look at it, because, again, respectfully, you've got 20 or 25%, that means there's 75 or 80% other applicants out there that are doing the same thing. Their opinion is important too, and they're able to work it out. So I think today, it needs to be what it is. We can look at amending it. I don't have any problem in looking at making something better, but I think it's just too early for that.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Biggs.
I guess just a question for staff on kind of when the appropriate time to engage with developers is. Are we thinking, and we maybe don't have that decided yet, but is there a intent like at the year mark to kind of circle back with developers who have been prominently engaged in middle housing to get feedback, or how are we thinking about that at this point?
Well, I don't think we want to wait till the year mark to engage. We are appreciative of the comments that have been submitted. Obviously, we've done a lot of analysis on them, and other things have come up. Our staff meet on a monthly basis with city staff to review potential amendments, and we're paying very specific attention to the middle housing standards because we are very committed to making sure that they work. So again, along the way, we always welcome those conversations. And we hope to actually present a report out to you all at that year mark. So we don't want to wait till the year to start that engagement. So we're trying to do that along the way.
Commissioner Adams.
I'd like to make a motion to deny based upon staff recommendation.
We have a motion to deny by Commissioner Adams, seconded by Commissioner Levinson. And before we take a vote, I do want to add a couple of comments. One, I'm often troubled when I hear that we wait a certain time to fix a problem. In the private sector, you see a problem, you fix it. In the public sector, should be the same. If we see an error, fix it. If we have vetted it, fix it. Because I've often heard in these public forums, they say, let's give it a year and then see what happens. Well, if you know you have a problem, fix it. And often, things are adopted that even developers can't see the flaw until it's put into practice. And I've seen that in the city's recode, where I was one of the biggest advocates of recode, but yet I didn't see some of the flaws until they were put into practice. And I say, don't wait a year, fix it. If you know it's wrong, fix it. And I would hope that we would do that. These guys are on the ground. They're working hard. I would advise Mr. Barlow to be a little more congenial in his ways of trying to make some revisions, and also be a little more considerate of the time of staff, that we can't get to everything right this moment. But I do believe that we shouldn't turn a deaf ear to it. I think we ought to listen. These are the folks trying to apply these standards, and they're going to bring to us some of the challenges. And then it's up to us to decide whether those are credible, items to address or not. And that's where we are today. So I would just encourage, we see problems, fix them, and I appreciate all the input from everyone, including staff. So we have a motion and a second to deny. All in favor to deny, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Any items that Commission would like to address? If not, we're adjourned.